No.
You can only sing if you're presenting.
Here's a message of importance to millions of people who are continually pale and washed out, weak and run down. Doctors will tell you that these conditions are often caused by a deficiency of iron. The iron you need to keep you physically fit and mentally alert. Medical studies show that 2 out of 3 women and many, many men lack the daily iron your body requires in a form your body can easily use and put to work.
For you.
Not for me, okay?
Every dose gives you more than your daily minimum iron requirement.
We are awake, we are awake, we are not alone. We are striving for more.
So if you're not getting the iron your body needs, if you feel weak, run down, and are easily upset, start taking iron today.
TGIF, everybody. We have made it through another week. Happy Friday. This is Have No Sphere, right here on the Iron Realm Media YouTube channel. My name is Josh Corey, and I think we have got not one single thing planned for this evening. But if we know anything about Have No Sphere, those tend to be some of our best shows, actually. So let's just jump right in and see who all is going to be hanging out with us this evening, even though you can probably just look at your screen and see. Let's say hello to Mr. Walt Johnson, Flat Earth Head, here on YouTube, or at Facebones777 on Twitter. Walt, how's your week been, sir?
Crazy, hectic, insane, but we're here. We made it. It's Friday, my dudes. So welcome. Glad you all are here. I see you in chat. I'm trying to say hey to everybody. I'm sure I missed people, so my apologies. Once we start, I'm probably not going to chat as much, but who knows? We may be chatting all through the show. In fact, we're probably going to invite all you guys to come hang out with us, because as Josh said, we don't have anything planned, but we're going to do a lot. So, hey.
It's Friday, my dudes.
It is Friday, dudes. And we'll just ease on down the line there and say hello to the Adam Meakin. How was your week, Adam?
Yeah.
I know.
In life, there are lyrics as in life. There's Zach's reminded me this week. I don't want to go. I don't know what is it. Ronan Keating. Life is a roller coaster, my friend, isn't it? You just got to ride it. I'll leave it there. This week.
It's all you can do. Just ride the roller coaster.
Ride it, ride it.
Or if you
ride
want,
it.
you can flap your arms and pretend like you're doing something to the roller coaster as it's going forward. Like you're helping move the roller coaster. Like that one song. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Yeah, if your boat's going down the stream, why the hell would you need to row? It's like flapping your arms on a roller coaster. That's all I'm saying. But hopefully now you can kick back, relax, and enjoy a nice Friday night, Adam.
God damn, I love a Friday.
Hard to beat a
It'll
good
be
Friday.
all right.
And then moving on down, we'll say hello to the Nomad, or the Wandering Wanderer. Too Nice for Ice, Good Times for All, or Zachary Zabala, if you prefer. Zach, how's your week been?
Pretty good, Josh. How's everybody doing tonight? Been getting kind of antsy about getting this drop test going, and finally got some good news this morning. Ace McLeod, shout out. Woo. He works at a place where they use a lot of these, and some get damaged, and they just go throw them away. And it doesn't have to be in perfect condition for what we're doing. So he thinks he may have found a couple. He has to take pictures, show management, say, hey, is it okay if I take these? And so fingers crossed, waiting on that. Hopefully things will be just moving right along here. I'm kind of excited about, it's easy to get me excited, I guess, when I get excited about cardboard boxes, But yeah, not a bad week. Been doing the Walter Lewin videos. It's fun going through them again. It's nice to just have a recap of that stuff every once in a while. So yeah, not a bad week. TGI.
Just a question. If you don't work out the box thing, have you thought about marshmallows?
Just a bunch of bags of marshmallows. Oh, that might work.
Or
It would go with your theme, I'm just saying.
marshmallow fluff.
There you go.
Of course, that'd be harder to get out.
Somebody call the Ghostbusters.
So how about we say hello to one Mr. John Savage. He's actually Sweary G over on Twitter. You can also find him at, you have a blog, don't you? It's called what? asavageplane.wordpress.com?
Look at you.
Something like that.
Something like that. How was your week, John?
I've had quite a good week, actually, compared to everyone else. I've noticed there's a lot of antsiness around this week, but for some reason I've managed to stay out of it. I'm looking forward to finally meeting Adam at some point shortly, which he seems a little bit too keen, though, to be perfectly fair. It's making me a bit suspicious. But as a result, I'm going to have to solve the issue of my roof raining on me whilst in my class. So I've been ripping down the ceiling tonight and stuffing it with a mixture of sheep's wool and plastic bottles. Well,
You know what, John? Part of me kind of wants to sleep next to the boiler, in a way.
you can do that.
I know I'll
burn your feet, though. And you'll be sleeping under what the council regard as quite an unsafe platform of 210 litres of boiling water. But yeah, help yourself.
I've never paid much respect to what a council tells me, mate. So that's fine.
But he's
I'm
full-faced looking at me saying, it's not code. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, it hasn't been tested. It's not engineered. We don't know if it will take the weight. And I'm looking at this thing that has 210 litres of cylinder on top of it and has done for 6 months. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know if it will take the weight? It's there in front of you, you bellend. But yeah, there you go.
Well, that's good. Glad you had a good week, Jack. Glad to hear it.
I did. Moving on.
And finally, last but never least in our hearts, Mrs. Cammie Knodel. Madam, how was your week?
Oh, it has been a cold and dreary and snowy and still snowing here. It's a snow day again in Colorado. No school today, and it was snowing last night, snowing all night, snowing all day, and it will continue to snow. Only ray of sunshine was finding the boxes on the magnets, but it's just got that February dreariness.
And Zach,
Magnetics,
of
yeah.
course, the ray of light being Zach.
Yeah, Zach is the real lights. Anybody watching space weather would notice that our magnetics were way off this week. Our magnetic field was very weak, and everything was getting through when we had a particle stream come down on us. And it should have noticed a lot of people looking at the magnetics would have been very edgy these last few days. The scale that normally runs 0 to 5, they had to expand out to 15, and it was jumping like I've never seen it jump actually. This
It was
is
so sporadic.
it was crazy. It was
Did you
crazy.
notice Ken Wheeler had put out a video too about Aurora Borealis that they've never witnessed before? They had these weird lines in them.
Right, this is the exact same stuff responsible for the auroras, the same energy I'm talking about. And you're right, they put out they've never seen auroras like this. I've watched these readings for years and years. I've never seen them swing the way I've watched them swing the last few days. And if anybody's heard me talk about them before, I discuss how that when um, the energy is pulled down or our shield gets weak, it's you'll see it registered on something called the BZ index, and you can look and follow this number, and it's basically between space and on the inside of our magnetic shield. Is the energy going the same direction, or is it going against it? And when it goes against it, it seems to let in more particles and energy. It makes people very uneasy, makes animals, makes birds. And so I'd love to have people's input on how many people were uneasy the last few days and didn't really know why they felt edgy.
That would be some real world stuff, because I've got to ask, being the skeptic I am, how much of NOAA can we trust? I mean, they may have put out correct space weather information up to this date, but there's nothing saying they can't just tweak it and go, oh my God, it's gone off the scale, if they're working in conjunction with someone else saying, oh, there's a financial crash, and oh, this was happening, that was happening. It's the real world stuff I want to hear about, the birds dropping out of the
Yeah,
sky, and yeah, Aurora
my,
Borealis and footage of it and that.
you can see the footage on it, but the thing about it is that what I'm talking about and what I'm correlating, they don't correlate out there. Nobody talks about it in the way that I'm talking about it. In other words, this is my correlation just because I happened to, for with what I did with a job I had, I was first of all a space weather geek, but what I did for a job is required me to keep the stock markets and the gold markets and everything open, the exchange rates on a tab on my desk, and I had those open at the same time as I had the space weather thing. So the two are unrelated, but I got to notice that the two were very, very related. And then I got to notice how different people acted around these times. And then I looked into it and found out that we have all of these pieces of magnetite actually in our bodies, and we're magnetic receptors. And of course, we'd be affected by this. But they're measurements, but I would not trust them either, except for they're collecting them for different reasons. And again, they're using them, for deception, expanding them out in their heliocentric model that doesn't work and doesn't affect us, but it really is all pretty close in, and it really does affect us.
And I'm almost certain it does. I mean, well, you've seen it. There's statistics and stuff when there's a full moon and that sort of thing. There is a correlation there. But do you see what I'm saying with the power in the hands of NOAA,
Right.
in so far as they could, let's say we were 2 days away from Bluebeam going live, and they're suddenly saying, well, it's going bloody mental. We've never seen this. We've had to extend everything. Yeah, I can see how
Yeah.
they would play into a giant blue beam hoax.
Right. But what's interesting about this is what I'm saying. You're not going to. I'm watching the numbers, but it's not recorded anywhere. You're not seeing this really talked about very much at all. For as extraordinary as the numbers are, it's not. It's only when you zero in and actually look at the numbers themselves. It's not put out on the page as anything strange or anything weird.
No, right, but they know people like you exist, Cammy.
Do, 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 do.
Well, you know, John, it does sound like, oh, how could such a thing ever occur and blah, blah, blah. But as I've lived here in Louisiana most of my life and experienced hurricanes and know how they used to happen and know how things have changed a lot over the years with everything weather related. And then you start looking at people who are exploring the whole idea of weather warfare and the fact that just about nothing we experience as weather anymore is natural in any capacity. I mean, you can watch them fire up all these plants with heat exchangers, which essentially are just releasing huge amounts of moisture into the atmosphere right before storms hit. And just, yeah, it's crazy when you start watching people who track this stuff. So if they can do it with weather, I don't see why they couldn't do it with all the rest of the phenomena that we call nature. Isn't that what they're trying to do? Hijack it all and control it all and be freaking God? I mean, that's their scheme, isn't it? Them, they, those.
Simulate everything.
Simulation. You were listening this morning, were you?
No, I wasn't, but carry on, Cammy.
Talk about taking over and manipulating and using right now what's going on. And again, it's very scary because it's based out of Colorado where they like to face a lot of these crazy or incidents or whatever. But what we have is we have the tragedy of a 4-year-old dying of the flu, and it's the second child that's died in Colorado of the flu, and it is a tragedy. But what they're doing on it is they've turned it into, the headline is 4-year-old boy dies of flu after mother follows anti-vaxxers advice. On Facebook, anti-vaxxers urged a mom not to give her son Tamiflu, and he died. It's turned into a complete, it's starting here and it's going to branch out from this. Watch the news
I've
for the
seen
next
that.
few days.
I've
They're
seen
going,
that headline numerous
times over the
right
years.
back from
Right.
my Alex Jones days as well, back in
Mhm.
2009. All the same shit. It's
all the same shit, and they're doing it, and they did it with like just the boy that died like 4 days ago. But right now they are on the news things doing the how can Facebook be allowed to have this group and is it still operating? And now they're talking about criminal charges against the mother for, I guess she got Tamiflu, a prescription for Tamiflu, but did not fill it.
yeah, the
And
hammer
so,
is coming down
yeah, they're
on vaccines right now. The hammer
right.
is undoubtedly, and it's linked to the coronavirus as well. That'll be a mandatory vaccine testing ground. Yeah,
Can I
it's
chip on you
scary
on that one,
times.
guys?
Please. From a chemist, the most
Well, not
basically qualified to talk about this, please.
I'm just more interested in the case study that you started to highlight there. So she was given a prescription for an antiretroviral. We're not talking.
Sir, could you lean forward, Mr. Meakin,
Sorry.
into the mic while you're being questioned?
I think the drug for reckoning is Stelimar or something like that. But Tamiflu is an antiretroviral drug.
And this is not a shot, right?
No, this is not. This is not an induction of any an IV injection.
Yeah, it'll have to go through the body's original immune system.
No, it's
not straight
to
the bloodstream.
No, it's not. Most importantly, it's not any form of RNA strain that you're injecting into the body. This is not that form of treatment. So, and I can only speak for myself. And like you say, I mean, I'm mitigated by the fact that, yeah, I am a pharmacist, and I maybe start the premise with this is quite pertinent to some of the outspoken stuff I've done at NHS level, to put it simply, to folks, and things that I've actually tried to stop people having viruses and say that it's pointless flu vax. That's my professional opinion. And this isn't a anti-vaxxer's opinion. I'm talking from a epidemiological point of view, that this is a statistically chasing a nonsense, and that actually, if we are going to mitigate for these things, and only in the vulnerable, so the elderly and the young like this, where we're talking where immune systems aren't properly developed or immune systems are impaired, we really should start to consider these things. And fundamentally, the reason I don't have a flu vaccine is I'm a healthy adult male, and there's nothing wrong with me getting the flu in most circumstances, and with access to appropriate medical care if my symptoms became particularly bad. I don't need protecting from the flu. I've lived 46 years so far, and I've been exposed to the flu a number of times, and I'm sure the next time I'm exposed to it, I've built that acquired immunity. If we follow that mainstream path, I should be able to ride the next one. Now, there may be a more virulent form, but I say mitigated with that, I have access to medical care. I don't feel the need to subjugate my body to that vaccine. I'm professionally vocal on that topic, but with it comes a reality that we can make those standpoints, and we should make those standpoints. But we do have to mitigate for when the flu does come out. Okay, and the pediatrics and geriatrics are the most vulnerable groups, and these are the areas where we need to take exceptional steps. And certainly from my point of view, I would not know what to do if it was my child that was diagnosed with the flu and I was seeing severe symptoms like that. That's obviously led to death. Now, I've always advised, certainly from a professional point of view, when I'm talking about nursing homes and things like that particularly, we shouldn't mass immunize people with some hopeful strain of flu that they, if they did get it, we've immunized them for the right one because we isolated it in Southern Asia a year ago, which is kind of the premise, frankly, that we'll work on. So with those kind of rambling statements taken in mind, the use of an antiretroviral is literally, it's something that attacks RNA function, which is something that we don't function with DNA. So it is a last step, and I think I would just, like I say, I'm not I oppose it. I refuse to vaccinate, even though pharmacists in this country are kind of financially mandated, and to great loss to my business, I refuse to engage in flu vaccinations. I don't believe they serve the purpose that they ought to do, and I'm happy to stand up professionally and say that. But I'm also happy to say, look, guys, there comes a point with vulnerable people that there is a fallback mechanism. And modern medicine, whilst it may be abhorrent to many, there comes a point where we have to consider them. And I think a little ignorance and hatred towards modern medicine is maybe leading towards decisions that are not necessarily the most sensible for the welfare of the patient, with all the ability that we have right now. And when you've got a person in front of you, and for all of my moral standards and all of my things, when it comes down to it, you know, I have to make a choice. And there are certain things that people, I say kids, flu is something that an adult can ride. And I strongly oppose the mass fear porn and indoctrination that we must in some way generate some herd immunity from something. But there are also times where, you know, we really, if we're going to attack stuff, take a fully considered approach to all of it, and not just as we're very easy to do is poo-poo the mainstream. But there comes a point where realistically, if this lady, Cameron, as you're saying, was given an antiretroviral, that's a tough choice, I think.
Okay.
Well,
Now,
yeah, there
the
are
rest-
real medicine out
And
there.
I don't think
Yes.
it fits in the anti-vaxxers campaign. The final bit, because it was a long-winded spiel, because I got rather emotional in that.
Right.
But I think it's abhorrent that, as you hear my professional standpoint on vaccination with regards to flus, that in some way the choice that this lady faced at this point is being tarred with something to do with vaccination, as if that had any relevance to what it appears to me, what you're describing is the life and death choice that she made, whether to give an antiretroviral, which has nothing to do with vaccinations. And I think,
And it gets a little bit more confusing. And it gets a
that's
little
where
bit
the
more
legal
confusing.
case should
Yeah.
be.
They're not making it. They're not making the legal case what it is. The other thing about this is this child was never diagnosed with the flu before he died. Two of his siblings had the flu, and so they sent Tamiflu home for the rest of the household as a prevention type measure. And the one that did come down with the flu and died came down with it very, very quickly, and it just hit him quickly and flew and fast. And she had never filled the Tamiflu for the household to do it. So where this lies is a tragedy. I agree with you wholeheartedly, more than anybody, that information, the pendulum always sways both ways too hard. Just like if you have strep throat, I think you should take some amoxicillin or penicillin, and that it can really get serious. The vaccines, their responsibility has been almost like the guinea pig way they do it, knowing that there are a lot of side effects and knowing that even spreading them out could change them. So I understand the mechanisms on how vaccines work and why they could be very beneficial in certain areas. But again, the pendulum went too far into the area with too many people being damaged.
Cammy, I wouldn't agree with you there. I struggle as I look around me to see the areas where vaccination has any major, the way it's now being touted as the new way forward to health. I cannot see the links between the two. It requires a prediction. It also requires a pathogenic causation of any disease. But fundamentally, you know, vaccines require diseases first, and pre-vaccination is a nonsense. Particularly if you're an evolutionist.
Right. I don't really think we're on a different page all that much. You're disagreeing, but not. I'm just saying that medicine comes in, get vaccines. It goes completely over the top. Where again, they don't know how long the vaccines last when they wear off. Are they exposing people to a lot worse because of the fact that the vaccine wore off, and now when they get it as an adult, it's much more dangerous with something like mumps and a mumps vaccine. I mean, there are a lot of unanswered questions.
A ton of unanswered questions,
A
especially
ton.
because they have never bothered to do any actual real clinical trials.
There's
But if
one bit, Cammy, on the case study that you added at the end after my monologue, which I apologise for. You mentioned that actually the onset of death was very rapid in the child, and at a point where one was administered. Now, if you listen to my most fundamental criticism, it's the way in which it's portrayed, and
Right.
what you see there is a fundamental misrepresentation of the facts. You know, fundamentally, with regards to, like I said, as if a vaccine is necessarily provides immunity. It might be a different strain.
my guess is if
more
they're not
importantly-
discussing vaccines, he was probably vaccinated.
But more importantly, there isn't a way that the antiretrovirals would have acted in that time frame anyway.
Right.
If that's the case, unless, of course, and this is the fundamental point, I'm going to lay blame from my fundamental understanding of this condition, and certainly with regards to, like I said, with regards to this, at the first onset or suspicion of a diagnosed aggressive flu that has mortality rates, you don't delay treatment. Okay, so if you're going to put a causative blame at anybody, it would be at the standard operating procedures that were clearly not followed by the medical staff. Now, if they were in any way suspected that there was a mortality significant strain here that they felt the need to issue antiretrovirals for, then they should have just initiated them in both geriatric and pediatric patients. It isn't a question of leave it up to an arbitrary opinion of a non-qualified person, such as a parent.
Well, what they're pushing right now is they're looking into and they are discussing whether or not criminal charges are going to be filed. And this is again based on looking at the mother's Facebook and seeing that she belonged to an anti-vax group and that she was posting when her kids were sick and this and that. And people were giving her advice like vitamin C and tea, and the fact that she was holding a social monologue, or not monologue, but dialogue with friends, and they were on an anti-vax group that has 150,000 is where all of the uproar is.
Well,
So
I'll tell
they've
you what,
turned it
Kelly.
into they've turned it from a tragic death to why Facebook needs to shut down all of these groups.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds, the more you describe it, particularly if you just heard on my very brief clinical appraisal, certainly from the clinician's point of view of what should have been done. Yeah. This is a bullshit case. This smells more like a fucking a false flag event all the way along.
It is. It's a complete witch burning, or a complete. I mean, they are looking to right now. Oh, beyond the news, they're going to, like, this group had 150,000 people in it, and the battle cry is, how can groups like this be allowed to survive? And are they still open on Facebook? How can people like Zuckerberg not defend these actions? This
Sounds to
child
me
is
like pure
dead. Don't they care?
propaganda.
Yeah. So I'm letting you
Pure
know.
propaganda.
Fear porn to the max.
To the max. So yeah, that's kind of what this week has felt like. It's just, again, a dreary, yucky.
Well, all I'll say, Cammy,
volumes to why I do not flip around on Facebook, man. I'll drop our show link and I'm out. I don't. That's why if anybody had a birthday I missed or a thumbs up you were waiting for, my bad.
It's not just Facebook though; it'll be everywhere. It'll be.
They're trying to do it everywhere.
Absolutely everywhere. It's pure. It sounds to me like pure propaganda to get the emotions flowing in all the mothers out there, and because let's face it, the majority vaccinate. So it's witch hunt.
6%, I heard, is the mortality rate for any given flu season. It's got about a 6% mortality rate. So there's people that die every single year from the flu. And to put that into perspective, the coronavirus has about a 3% mortality rate, for whatever that was worth. So there you go.
Oh, I've got more on that, Josh. There's a number of geeky epidemiologists studying this. It's actually quite a novel virus in terms of its symptomatic display. So it you appear to be getting a lot better towards the end of it. When you first present with the symptoms, it's very similar. But towards the end, basically, your lungs fill up for 3 or 4 days, which depreciates the with fluid. So the alveoli become
Is this
swollen and-
speculation, Adam?
Bogged down.
No. This
For
is data. This is really good stuff. This is what's interesting. And this is the
Source?
point. Give me a minute. There is a genuine calm the shit down point to it. But it does require an explanation as to what's going on. So from my understanding, which is based on, like I said, respected general practitioners and epidemiologists, the spread's not as bad as it is, but more importantly, the fundamental underlying cause appears to be that like I said, you get a fluid retention in the lung, which reduces oxygen absorption. Now, this is particularly delayed and more severe than in other types of the common cold virus, which is what a coronavirus is. And in a lot of cases, it's not a problem. It just, you're laid out and you completely go. But the simple way to deal with it, and the thing that was interesting is how, from an epidemiological point of view, they were talking about how they're going to deal with it if it was to become endemic, this situation. And it's quite simple. It's, well, don't worry about it too much. Put the people on oxygen, because the trouble with this is it doesn't stop you breathing, but it really reduces your oxygen absorption, reducing it well below the standard 90%. Now, most people, they want it between 90 and 95, can tolerate 88, etc. But it's when it starts to drop really low that then the problems occur and knock-on consequences over the ailments, etc., start to become affected in terms of general health. But the consequence, from my understanding, is that if we had sufficient oxygen supplies, then most people should be able to ride through it. That's even
Adam,
without
as
the use
a
of
pharmacist,
antiviral.
do you sell oxygen?
Well, interesting that, isn't it?
Because I've got a mate who's been trying to get hold of oxygen for years, knowing this information, but it's almost impossible to get hold of. But
Are you ready, John?
go.
Are you ready? So this is weird. Okay, so about when I first started in this game, at the end of the day, you do your standard day, sticking labels on shit, giving advice, etc. But at the end of the day, the way in which people that needed oxygen would get oxygen would be people like me getting in their car and taking one of the oxygen tanks out the back of the shop, loading it in, putting a seatbelt around it, and driving it up to the old dude with COPD or terminal cancer, whatever, sorting it all out and fucking off. And nobody ever suffered. Let's say about 10 years ago, the NHS decided in its wisdom that this was an inefficient way of delivering this service. And whereas you would have been able to buy oxygen from your chemist, standard thing, as described how it can, the health benefits of it, it was taken away from our remit under the BOCS guidelines, and a lot of other regulations. So it was all moved away from us, and fundamentally it was no longer a contractual part of the pharmacy services of NHS. So all payment was taken away. There was numerous cases, of people dying without oxygen.
Yeah, so how many people died because of that? And should we be pushing criminal charges?
Well, I'm just saying to
people at BOC or our government.
Well, those cases came and went, etc. And to be fair, from what I understand, they're transitional. But the interesting point is what you say there, and with what I said there, actually, access to oxygen is a very fundamental thing that is a easy way of improving home health. Yet, legislatively, 10, 20 years ago, it was taken away from... You could have walked into my shop and I'd have sold you one. Get me? Can't do it now.
So you need one of those water splitters that in your loft or whatever that splits water from into hydrogen so that you can power your house and heat your home, and oxygen so that you can actually breathe with all the crap they're spraying us with.
Well, I never got that far. You either had oxygen. In severe case, you'd have what's called an oxygen, an oxygen concentrator, which would just take atmospheric air and pump out some of the nitrogen, basically, to make it more oxygen rich, which were more for heavy dependent users. But I say the significant point, mate, is what you kind of slapped me with. Actually, yeah, that access to oxygen is the ease of access has been reduced significantly, probably under anti-terrorism or as well, I suppose. But
Just can't think why, Can't think why.
Adam, in Colorado, it's gone the other direction that those little oxygenators, it seems like I would not be remiss if I said over 50% of the population over 65 has them.
Really?
And
Really?
Colorado.
In Colorado, we're a
also-
mile high. Yeah, we have the thin air.
Right.
In
And
Denver.
you also have legalized cannabis. Can I just say,
yeah,
you're streaks ahead of most of the Western world.
Yes.
Oh, honey, we legalized mushrooms too.
oh, honey,
We illegalized mushrooms in 2005. You could go down your local head shop, down any town in any place, and buy mushrooms up until 2005.
in a paper bag. Oh no, in a plastic bag, weren't it?
It was a plastic bag, I think.
Yeah.
But
Paper.
either way,
Is it they both illegal? No, because when I was at uni, mate, that's what you learn. In one way, it was just in a plastic bag, you were taking it and it was still pure. You were just picking it, and because they grow on the field, you could never be done for picking a mushroom on the field. That was fine. If you put it in a paper bag, it was considered you were drying it out for the extraction of psilocybin. So it was considered an offence unto them. An offence.
no, you could actually buy them from head shops up until 2005, when I think it was Lord Chancellor Brown made them illegal, and also made cannabis a class B instead of C drug or whatever.
A magic mushroom's illegal. Then. I missed that.
In the UK, yeah.
Yeah,
They
I
grow
didn't
up
know
on the hills.
Right. I was going to say that's
know.
almost harder than trying to legalize cannabis, because that shit's everywhere, man.
They're everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, but like you say, now the legislation is that you can't have it in a paper bag, you're drying it out, yada, yada,
Right,
yada.
right.
But what I'm saying
There's
is
always-
2005, you could buy them down the shop in any town.
Well, see, now here in the States at some head shops, I remember in the early 80s, mid 80s, you could get spore prints. You couldn't get actual shrooms, but you could get spore prints. Hell, you used to order spore prints out the back of like Rolling Stone and Circus Magazine and Cream Magazine, all the rock magazines in the 80s and 70s. You could order spore prints and grow your own shrooms that way if you didn't have access to
You still
fields of
can now.
cows. Well, I'm sure you still can, but I'm just saying there's always been a way to get around it. But the fact that they're actually now legalizing it, apparently, and not even having an issue with it there in Colorado, that's awesome.
Well, I don't know.
Only the spores. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it now, and if they're at the head shops and that. I know in the 80s, all she needed to do was find a good mushroom hunter and head up to Spinney Reservoir. But I think now it might be available in the dispensaries or grocery. I don't know.
I felt it would have to be almost.
So
I saw the burrito shop had CBD products. So,
So, Cammy, they in Colorado, the mushrooms weren't legal ever.
I don't know if they were really illegal if you had them packaged to deal. I think they treated them. I don't really know if the police knew what to do with it or they would treat them illegal, but they definitely completely decriminalized it and made it clear that there's no. I mean, they grow wild here.
But this is what shocks me is that, we've gone in the UK from having magic mushrooms legal and sold on the streets in 2005 to now being illegal, and you've gone from it's now a
Illegal.
revelation that they've legalized it. It's just nuts.
Yeah, I don't know how much was ever enforced before. I think they did it as an afterthought when marijuana was legalized, and the police were like, "What do we do with the mushroom cases?" And what, I think it was just the definition of, "No, don't waste your time."
Hallucinogenic or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
and
just
again,
shocked
you
that
can
the
go.
UK
Well, I know growing
didn't
up, I
ban
heard
'em.
stories of people, getting busted out in the field with bags full of shrooms, that kind of thing over the years. But as far as, how enforceable it really is, and if those tales were just urban legends to keep you out of farmers' fields, that kind of thing, I can't say I personally knew a person that got arrested. So there you go.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Well, it's all fake news.
Right?
rubbish.
It's been fake news since the beginning, John. Hell. Didn't you see the
So I'm
commercial?
going to ask.
Well,
who-
John, just to end that one, all I'd say then on that is because I was pondering there on thinking back to my old lectures on hallucinogens. And there was a flashback, which is obviously ironic with regards to hallucinogen, to one of the lecturers saying, if you're going to go out and get your mushrooms after this lecture, make sure you do it with an old bread bag, a plastic bag. I'm sure it's still okay because it's illegal.
No, it's still okay to harvest them.
Yeah.
In different type bags. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point was that they actually sold them in shops. You can't do that anymore. You can't sell them. You can't. You can't hand them to your neighbor legally. You can't take them legally. But you can harvest them. It's the same old bullshit with cannabis. You can have the seeds because you're an heirloom seed collector, but the minute you germinate it, you're nicked. It's the same with the spores. You can have them. You can send €1 stuck to an envelope, or the last time I did it anyway, and send it off to I can't remember what it's called, the Universal Mushroom Spore people, and they'll send you back a syringe with spores in it, which I've done, and I've got them in my drawer. But the moment I cultivate those, I'm nicked.
If they grow in your garden,
I don't think there's a problem with that. A lot of people do that, actually. Just sort of throw mushrooms and try and grow their own mycelium or whatever in the back garden. And I don't think there's a problem with that unless you harvest them and dry them, then you're nicked. It's all bullshit. But my question was, I'm sure people are asking, why Michael Jackson?
I forgot about that shit. It's been so long ago.
Yeah, what's the motherfucker moment? See, I called the baby blanket because put a blanket on the motherfucker's head.
Oh my goodness, what happened? Shout out to the chat. There's too many for me to start going through now. Appreciate you hanging out and coming over and hanging out with us. Thanks, Bob, for bringing them over with you.
And I did want to say that Math Powerland is going to be interviewing Zen Garcia about his Flat Earth court case.
I saw that.
And it's going to be airing sometime within the next 48 hours. So make sure you head on over there and keep an eye out for that.
Oh, 48 hours. See, I misread that. I thought
she said 48. I assumed hours.
And I assumed minutes, and I was like, no, wait till we're finished. Didn't do it because I want to watch.
I was just thinking that TV show, The First 48. I just think hours.
Right. I don't know if she's still in chat. I was telling her earlier, we've been saying for years that they need to come hang out. We knew her before she was Miss Powerland.
That's right. We were trying to get her on while she was en route.
We tried. We almost had her over here before she was heading that way. But yeah, it would be awesome to have them come hang out and fill us in on all the craziness of late because it's been crazy. I know.
So, John,
I'm still waiting for Adam's explanation on this thumbnail.
No, cut that.
No, we are really wanting to know, sir. Is it your special day or?
Well, I'll tell you what. I won't give you the full explanation because all of the thumbnails I do are private. There's bits in all of them.
Oh, well,
It's
now
on
I
a
gotta go
fucking
back and
ice,
find
baby.
the code. There's a hidden code. I didn't know.
I didn't say code. I just said there's a private meaning in all of them. There's nothing that you don't like miss every third word out and read out in it. Well, you know what I mean? But on that one, like I said, I've had a tough week. And Zach's a gent, isn't he? And when I was down, he helped pick me up. And we had a really good night on Thursday. Just having that's a weird one. It was like being in the pub, right, across continents. And it was a real pleasure just sit and be like that, you know what I mean? So we sat and we nattered and played some tunes to each other. So that was the kind of the theme behind tonight. But the rest I'll leave.
Nice.
I'm sure you'll find it eventually. Might take it. But it's in Michael Jackson's lyrics, but don't play them backwards because there's nothing demonic in it. Play them forwards.
Why not Gary Glitter?
Because that would be demonic forwards or backwards.
It was just you and Zach on Thursday, was it?
Yeah.
Well,
F
all
everybody
right,
else.
Savage. You get the point. It was all right. It wasn't just me and Zach in the pub. Yeah. Luckily, I was joined by my fucking mates. And I tell you what, you know, sometimes this shit, you know, I said to the guys in the week, it's doing this stuff was supposed to be a relief from the slave world, from the bullshit. Yeah. And
Right.
yeah. There's somebody that really tries to avoid bullshit and the likes, but tries to be honest and do their honest best to be honest with everybody, but without being a twat and overly opinionated or overly egotistical. It's very difficult sometimes because you end up sat in the middle of a multitude of parties, none of which you agree with, but none that you can be really asked to kick off with because there's such minor differences that none of them make the fucking slightest bit of difference with regards to where we're all supposed to be heading. So sometimes you're faced with a bit of, you know, sticky moments where your own hopes of how you would wish people would behave and how you try your best to behave, you're disappointed in others a little bit sometimes. As you watch egos play out, you realise that those egos aren't necessarily beneficial to the cause that we're all here for. Sometimes that shit gets you down, doesn't it? But luckily, if you've got good mates, yeah, you see through the bollocks.
Yeah.
Come on, motherfucker.
Come on. Hey, there's a note for you guys in chat. I want you to make sure you see. It's kind of important, I think. Our chat here in Zoom, not the public chat on YouTube.
I got it.
Oh, see, you were there while I was talking. I missed it. There we are. So the steps are happening. It's happening. What? Drum roll.
Well, what are you talking about?
The chat.
Crypticness.
It wasn't very cryptic, John. He said the chat here in
It's
the
chat
Zoom
right here.
call.
If you click on it, it's right there, bottom right. It's an app. Check it out.
Oh my God, my screen's gone mad.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know.
Proceed.
When I multitask, that's what
Cookie
happens.
settings, what the
Oh
fuck?
Lord, cookies. You're headed for the dark side. Don't go, John. Don't go.
talking the last link in the chat?
No, the question in the chat. We were talking about this last week before. When was it? My goodness. Read the chat and see what happens.
How does he join is the only question I see in the chat.
Oh, really?
Go up to.
But then there's an answer.
Go up to.
There's a whole,
Here,
lot of question there.
Here, I'll
Whole
put it.
question.
I'm
awesome.
reading.
There was a topic brought up about.
Okay, I've got
There it is. He found it.
I was getting painful, Savage.
Welcome to the show.
You could have just asked.
Then there would have been an awesome surprise.
Okay.
Has the link been sent or is it just here?
I'd say no.
Send that link. Oh, and then there's Rob. Hang on.
Yep. For you.
Not for me, okay?
You got that down, Josh. Every time somebody says it, I love it. On the draw.
Just shut down that bloody screen. That's because of you, Zach, telling me to shut down all my screens. I had that introduction to the topic we're going to talk about. And
You're an IT guy. Why are you taking computer advice from me?
IT, right. From all people.
trouble. Right.
Because I'll tell you why, Zach. Because he was IT management. If you can
Yeah, you
palm it off
know it.
somewhere.
Big difference. Big difference. Right. Here's a little tip for you. Control Shift T.
Yeah,
What
I
does
have
that do?
dogs going crazy. I guess I really could have, rather than dropping it in that chat, just sent it directly to Bob via Skype, which would have been a much more polite and intelligent thing to do.
I copied and pasted it. I'm in the background making Mexican hamburgers. I don't know if anybody else is a fan, but that's where you take tortillas and make hamburgers and cover them with cheese and green chili and lettuce and tomatoes.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah,
It's
You're
the
gonna
green
get
chili.
angry,
It's the
hungry.
green chili that matters, and I have like the best green chili here going.
And then you're going to tell me you're going to take one to Zach,
That was
I am.
fraudulent.
but
there.
not bring me one.
It's
was-
true. I have
Oh, that's
favorites,
cute,
the
babe.
ones I can reach.
I've got hungry again. All I've got
That's-
is mini rolls and some honeycomb coated in chocolate that my sister-in-law bought me from a garden centre today. That doesn't match a Mexican hamburger.
The Mexican hamburger is good. It's a very popular dish in Colorado. I'll have
I
to bring
said
it
you were
with me.
going to
though.
make Adam's mouth water, but
Oh.
I didn't call you
Do you
Adam.
like the green chili?
I
I love
Mm.
chili.
Freudianly called you angry.
Angry Anderson.
Well, if you go back and listen, I said angry is going to be mouth-watering.
I'm angry because I'm not getting one of them burgers.
Yeah, I'm
Reason
not
enough.
happy about that either. Don't talk food. Not at this bloody time.
Are we talking like hard tortillas or soft flour tortillas, Cameron?
Soft flour tortilla.
I know it's not a cooking show, but you know what the hell.
No, this one is between soft flour
What?
tortilla.
Flat Earth Cooking, trademark, Iron Realm Media. Next week. Look for it.
Check it out. Our flatbread pizzas.
As we were
Okay.
waiting for
Hot
our
iron
guest.
steak.
I was going to do pancakes, but
Are they hard and moist?
Speaking of cast iron,
Pizza. Well,
sometimes I can be, John.
Walt, how did you miss the cast iron skillet?
how did I?
How did you? You have skillet there.
Well, he's right here.
That's
Oh,
a
he-
cast iron skillet. That's what that is,
There
right?
we go. You're right. There we go. I think someone's ringing our bell.
Ding dong.
Who's at our
Ring
door?
my bell.
Avon calling.
Ring my
I
bell.
love that little
My
cat.
bell. Sorry.
When was it when I was at your house? First time. That's been a while.
I'm trying to remember.
September. I think it was September, maybe. The first time I stopped by.
Damn it. We need to introduce a guest. We've been joined by Bob Knodel.
Oh, sorry.
And I
Bob.
hope to hell you remember the question that I was asking you about ham radio,
no.
etc.
It's all about
Right.
you, John.
It was about VHF and power being the limiting factor. But how you doing, Bob?
Pretty good, John. How about yourself? And hello, everybody.
Hello, Bob.
Hi,
Well,
Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, honey. I'm cooking in the downstairs.
All right, awesome.
What is that show when they had all the squares and they were all looking at each other and saying
Hollywood
hi?
Squares.
No,
The
I've
Brady
never heard of
Bunch.
that. Brady Bunch.
Brady
there
Bunch,
you go.
okay.
This is like the freaking Brady Bunch, isn't
it's
it?
the
Where
Flatty
you've got
Bunch.
Bab.
The Flatty Bunch.
I just called
the
you
Flatty Bunch.
We've got Bob, we've got Zach, we've got Cammy. They're all waving at each other in their little boxes and everything.
I got many roles. I'm not bothered.
Have a lovely
my
lady.
I just realized I'm Alice. I'm not liking this at all.
Who was bringing up two
Everybody
very
has
lovely boys.
Right? Everybody has.
3, I guess. You want to count Zach? 3 lovely
Bob,
boys.
how's your week been?
Been good, really good so far. I had a bout with feeling like crap. I don't know if it was the flu or whatever, but I felt like somebody beat me to death or ran me over with a truck. But that only lasted for about a day, so I'm doing pretty good now. Can't complain.
Vaccinate, Bob. Vaccinate.
Do not take Tamiflu.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about that.
Do you get it every year or what?
No, I don't know. I think it's just part of getting old. You know, you get these weird things every once in a while, but for the most part,
I hear you saying that so often about getting it. The state of mind. It's the fact that you keep saying it's about getting older, my senior moments. You're bringing it on, you know.
He lives with me. I
that's
turned
true.
him gray.
Yeah, you should see. Yeah, Kemi has this habit of turning people she's around with, gray hair. We'll have to do it
noticed
before and
that.
after of Zach, to
Right.
see-
I saw Zach before, so I know what's happening over there.
You should have seen Bob before.
Yeah, it's just that succubus thing,
Man, that's weird. But Cammy, you're the youngest person I know.
Right. She gets her energy somewhere.
Yep.
That's okay. We'll go from Zachary the Gray to Zachary the White.
That's
He
right.
just gains more power the whiter he gets.
And I'm not shaving my beard. Once it's all white, I want to see how long it'll get. Then I'll shave it off. But
So
I want to see when it's going to stop growing.
I was just wondering if Minion was black when you got him.
Brutal.
He was a black lab, believe it or not.
Yeah, he was.
Sorry, Bob. We're in a really weird way.
Yeah. We really do have serious stuff to talk to you about, but it's been a bizarre week here for sure. And glad to hear you're feeling better, man. I know we all been dodging it, and we're all burning the candle at both ends, doing all this stuff we do with all these different shows and research, and our brains are always running it on that high octane caffeine coffee fuel. So
Yeah, no
For
kidding.
yourself. For you.
Yeah,
not
I
for
never
me, okay?
I never used to drink coffee until about 6 months ago. Then all of a sudden, Cammy bought this hazelnut creamer, and it's like that stuff is so good. I've since become addicted to coffee, and I drink it all the time now.
So sorry.
No way.
It's true.
In your
Michelle
sixth
did-
decade, or fifth, sorry, but you're getting into coffee. Well, there's hope for all of us, I suppose.
Hated
One
it
day,
until he
though.
was almost 60. I mean, he definitely. I've changed his views about a lot of foods and a lot of things over the years. If he tries them, he'll like them. But he came into the marriage as a picky eater, and it turns out that he's a huge fan of asparagus and a huge fan of these things. He just never knew it.
Are you a
It's like my-
Capricorn, Bob?
No, I'm a Scorpio. But in my defense, the reason I used to hate asparagus is because my mom used to boil it. I mean, boil it until it was like snot and gross to me. And-
Bob, it's green, for crying out loud.
I know, right?
You don't need any other reason, surely.
and Cammy just cooks it really lightly and steams it, and it's nice and crunchy and really tasty, and I love it now. It's awesome.
Yeah. Dipped in a nice blue cheese sauce. But yeah, on that note, my granddad, no, I haven't got one. My wife's dad, he's in his 70s, and he's just found blue cheese. So yeah, there really is hope for us all, I suppose.
Right, that's enough for the cooking hours, surely, thank God.
You're getting hungry, aren't you?
I've had to have 2 mini rolls, mate, just because Cammy started my gastric juices flowing. So,
That's where the beer gut comes from. eating late, you see.
Oh, okay.
Because then you loaded your body up with all this energy, and then you go to sleep, and it just turns into fat.
I'm a lean sleep.
I've seen you. I saw your prostate across Rome.
You saw my prostate, or you saw me laid across somebody in a.
I clearly said prostate across Rome. I have not seen your prostate, and I have no intention of seeing.
You can have a look if you want.
No, you're okay. But on that note, I did buy a boroscope the other week for some crazy price of about 15 quid, which has got 6 foot, which is more than necessary. But it's to go up my flu, right? And that's not a euphemism. It's to go up my.
For God's sake, for not.
So I've brought us to a whole different level without actually trying to get it to a whole different level.
We don't want to be hearing about things going up your flu, man.
It is legitimate. But we did get you on here for a reason, Bob, didn't we? Can you remember why?
Well,
I remember.
I heard it was something about ham radio and VHF and power.
There we go.
Or something.
I remember.
That's right.
One of our pre-shows turned into, especially John Savage had a friend asking him about how a ham radio works on flat Earth, and him thinking that since my last name was Knodel, I might have some of the answers. And I was like, "You got the wrong Knodel." But the answers are easily at hand. And so, since we didn't have a show planned right now, and since I am in the midst of making Mexican hamburgers, so it's hard to present.
Well,
we thought that we would have Bob come on and answer all of our questions about how does ham radio work on a flat Earth.
Oh,
Well,
You say our, you mean John's.
well, thanks for that, Cami, because that's given me a little bit of impetus as to remembering what was going on. And what it was, I was watching a YouTube video called Introduction to Ham Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And halfway through it, he was saying, and this is going to really annoy the flat earthers out there, but VHF and the other one, UHF, are line of sight. And because we can't broadcast past a certain distance, this is point blank proof that it's going around the curve, that it's not, it can't go round the ball anymore. And I remember distinctly being emailed by from a US Air Force pilot quite a few years back. I won't say her name, but she was saying that someone was coming to her with exactly the same thing, and she came back with a fantastic screen grab, which I've lost, obviously. But it was saying it was basically the limiting factor was power. The power that you put into a VHF radio or a UHF radio is the limiting factor. So I'll pass it over to you, Bob, for any sort of clarification on that front.
Okay. Well, first of all, I will say that ham radio works a whole lot better on flat Earth than it would on a ball Earth. Okay. So
yes.
As far as line of sight, what they say about the line of sight, and this is going to come back to haunt them greatly when they say, "Oh, VHF and UHF only work on line of sight distances." Although that is true, the problem with that is that the line of sight distances that are not supposed to be line of sight, the VHF and UHF works beautifully on them, and of course. The higher the frequency goes, VHF is typically around 150 megahertz. And for the ham specifically, it's between 144 and 148 megahertz. And then UHF is around the 450 megahertz band. So the higher in frequency you go, the more critical it actually becomes of having to be actual line of sight until you get, of course, to laser light. But as we all know, just like the laser light, we can see way too far. We can see hundreds of miles. And there are several instances of microwave and VHF and UHF transmissions going way, way, way hundreds, if not thousands of miles beyond the curve.
I have one for you right here, Bob. In fact, the day all this came up on the pre-show, a friend of mine was over. I've been knowing him for 40 years. We worked at a radio station here in South Louisiana together.
Mm-hmm.
And at night, we would boost our shows through our AM as well. And we got a letter from someone in Australia that heard our show from South Louisiana. So,
wow. And
where's
I've
this
got
ball again?
an example of that as well. When I was in the IT business, we had a microwave link between London and Knutsford. And that was, I think it was about 115 miles. But, you know, when it rained and things like that, it was a bit crap. But it was only a couple of years ago that I sort of started doing the maths on it. It was like, that just does not work. And I was told by my ham radio friend that it was repeaters. So again, it's something I can't prove either way, but please carry on, Bob.
Well, yeah, and repeaters are used extensively by the hams in both the 450 VHF and UHF bands. But you know, for example, there was Cambium Networks that set a wireless broadband link record of 245 kilometers, which is what, something like 180 miles, something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
And you know, that is way, way, way too far for the heights that they have at the antenna. And so essentially what it would have to be doing at that point, especially, you know, they showed the topography, it would literally have to be curving around the earth. And of course, what do the ballers say? Oh, well, yeah,
Ducting.
it's ducting. It's ducting. Now, microwave, I'm sorry, that you may be able to say that with the lower HF frequencies, but no, not with microwave frequencies. It requires an
Can you
absolute.
can you
What?
stop and explain like the frequencies and how they look differently and the size of them? Or is there any visualization you can give to that?
I can smell that burger from here. But
Oh,
carry
listen,
on.
you hear them?
Yeah, that's making me hungry.
Yeah, sizzling.
They are sizzling.
But no, that's a good point. How do you? I mean, the microwave they punch through things, don't they? They don't bounce off things.
Well, the microwaves do have a tendency to bounce off of things. They will penetrate, but not, you know, like I said, the higher the frequency, the less that becomes characteristic. Versus like AM radio, which is down, you know, below 1 megahertz, and HF in general, you know, will penetrate virtually anything, and VHF does too. VHF and UHF will actually penetrate structures. But like I said, when you start getting into microwave, that doesn't happen so much anymore.
That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, you know, when the guy, the hoon up the street comes around with his beatbox in the back of his car, that goes through walls, that goes through, I mean, you can't get away from it, but you can't hear the tweeter, the high
Exactly.
pitch stuff. Okay.
Exactly. That's a really good analog to compare it to. And as who is it? Ian Adams says so very correctly in the chat. He says the higher the aerial, the better. Well, why is that? Well, the reason is because when you get up into the higher frequencies, well, and this is true for low frequencies too, but especially in microwave, you have to get past an area called the Fresnel zone, or the Fresnel zone, however you want to pronounce it. And basically, what the Fresnel zone is, and this is something that is related directly to the wavelength of the microwave itself. But essentially, there is a zone that is a vertical zone, if you will, that we're concerned about, that takes place from the transmission point, right? That it could potentially bounce off of things on the ground. And if you are not clear of obstruction in that Fresnel zone, you can get a condition called multipathing. And what multipathing is say you're transmitting from a specific point on the antenna and you have a straight line path, you know, going from one antenna directly to the other. And there's also a path where if it's microwave or something, you can bounce off the ground and then bounce up to that other antenna. Well, unfortunately, when that happens, the two signals, the bounce signal and the direct signal, will come in at a little bit different times from each other. And therefore, they will come in at a little bit different phase from each other. And if this is a digital signal, what will happen is you'll start getting digital checksum errors, and they'll have to resend the packets over and over and over again. If it's analog, it just turns into a jumbled, you know, echoey, weird, bizarre sounding mess, depending on how much time difference there is in between the two signals arriving at that point, right?
Hmm.
So that's the main thing that you've got to be considerate of. And of course, the higher the aerial, the better. But as far as what Cami was asking, when you're dealing with frequencies, the higher the frequencies, the shorter the wavelength becomes. Now, what does that mean? So essentially, if we assume, let's just say that all light and all radio waves travel at 186,282 miles per second, okay? So if they are all at that fixed speed, and that's, we'll just assume that is true for sure, for this example anyway. If
Yeah,
you
we got you.
have, yeah, if you transmit a signal, the wavelength is essentially the first of all, the frequency is oscillating back and forth from positive to positive to negative, back and forth and back and forth. And when we're talking about like microwave at 1 gigahertz, it's literally oscillating 1 billion times per second back and forth. Okay, so what the wavelength is in 1 second, um, there will be one alternation of the wave, right? And the amount of physical space that is traversed by that radio wave is the wavelength. So when you have a higher frequency and it's oscillating faster, right? All things being the same as far as propagation speed, that means the wavelength is going to be shorter. Whereas if you have a lower frequency, it's oscillating at a much slower rate. That means the wavelength is going to be much, 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 much longer. Okay.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense, and that correlates with the, like the 10-meter band or the 20 and the 80 and that sort of thing. Is that right?
precisely, and that's exactly why they call it that, because the wavelength for a 10-meter band, which is about 28 megahertz, in free space will propagate about 35 feet, which is 10 meters,
Mm-hmm.
right? And 2 meters at 146 megahertz, let's say, which is about 6.5, 7 feet. That's exactly how far that will propagate in free space.
And this is the reason why they call it millimeter wave, because the actual wave trough and peak are well, they're actually less than a millimeter. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you get nanometer, which of course is light, which is really, really, really small, because it's super duper high frequency. So, and that's a technical term that, super duper high frequency.
Super duper, yeah. Trademark, super duper. But
That's right.
I mean, I also heard this as part of the excuses that they were sort of saying, the higher up you go, the further the signal will go, and therefore that also proves we're somehow on a ball. But that works equally as well on a flat Earth, doesn't it? I mean,
Exactly.
elevation
If
just
not better.
is irrelevant, whether you're on a ball or a triangle or a flat plane. Elevation is irrelevant. But what about the power? What the pilot was saying about it being limited by power? Because I've got a friend who's an air traffic controller. And they say they can just boost the power and they can see 200, 300 miles. They can see airplanes landing in Manchester from London if they boost
Exactly.
the power far enough. So power is a key component, right?
It absolutely is. And they're talking about radar. And this is something, that's what I did in the Air Force was air traffic control radar, not as a controller, but as, the technician that went out and installed it, repaired it, et cetera. I also, after the Air Force worked in microwave. And yeah, if you turn up the power on radar, essentially what you're doing is you're putting out a much higher amplitude signal that when it finally gets to the target, right, it has a higher amplitude when it arrives at the target, and then it bounces back to you. And it's just like anything else. If you have a really loud stereo and you turn up the volume, well, that wave of sound is going to propagate further and further and further. The exact same rules apply, and the same analogy would apply to radio frequencies, right? So yeah, turn up the power, and it works the same whether it's a ball or a flat plane. But unfortunately, the ball Earth, when you've got that geometric horizon that the ballers are now trying to deny, that would physically block microwave signals. And, when I worked in microwaves, typically a typical microwave hop is anywhere between like 40 to 60 miles. And sometimes we would, bypass one, two, or three hops and get close to like 200 miles on some of these just for diagnostic purposes. And we would get solid signals coming back. Now, on a ball model, that would be absolutely impossible.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah, and what do the ballers say? Well, that's because it's ducting, and it's ducting through the ionosphere. And again, that doesn't happen so much with microwave. In fact, I doubt it happens at all. But I'm sure I would get a lot of feedback from people saying, "Oh, yes, it is true because it happens." No, the reason that happens is because it's flat. So
yeah, I every time friend of mine is ham radio, ex-army radio operator, sort of sends me stuff. I just can't. I can't think of any other reply other than, yeah, it's flat. That's why it's doing this. You don't have to make up all this other stuff and go through all the maths and the physics and everything about it. It's quite simply, it's because it's flat. But is there anything in ham radio that is a question mark? That is, I don't know. I don't understand why this does this. Or is there anything in ham radio that you would consider like the best proof that the Earth is a ball? Because I can't see anything.
Oh, well, yeah, I can give you what the ham radio operators would say, and I would have thought the same thing too, until you start looking at other things. And what I will say about that is the ham radios will point towards a mode of operation that's called QRP. And essentially all QRP means is very low power. Okay. So what these hams will do is they will crank up a transmitter and they will put it down to about 1 watt, and they'll be able to work almost anywhere in the world. Now, this is when, and this is the HF band, and this is when the atmospheric ducting absolutely does take place. And that, gets up into these ionized layers of the atmosphere, and it'll kind of trap it there, and it'll act like a waveguide. But here's something that's really interesting about this that a lot of people don't know, except for some of the very best QRP ham radio operators. And that is that you get the best QRP operations when you are on a major ley line, right? And this is crazy. There's a ley line called the 181 ley line, which happens to run right up the East Coast. And a lot of ham radio operators get some fabulous low power, conversations that go on from there. And so what's happening is these magnetic ley lines that we've all seen, you all heard about them. Of course, the mainstream denies that they're there because, dowsing, people can actually pick them up via dowsing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there is something special about these ley lines. And what I think it is, this all goes back to this magnetic grid, right? That's essentially what these ley lines are, is this magnetic grid. And they will act as sort of a waveguide in free space. And that's why, and so that is, that's one thing that the ballers would point to, but none of them would ever, you'd say ley line and they'd go, yeah, right. Except, of course, for the very smart ones.
Well, interestingly enough, my amateur radio mate is his speciality is QRP.
Oh, there you go.
So I have now, mentally booked a time to drag him to Stonehenge and with his equipment, and let's see what we can do on that. Because, ley lines. I don't even think ley lines are denied by mainstream. They talk about them, they map them, they do everything else, but they don't. It's a sort of joke, but
right,
they're still there.
Ironically, while you were talking about it, I searched QRP radio, was kind of reviewing it, and then I just stuck in ley lines, and let me share my screen and show you what came up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've never researched it. I just knew about this from 40 years ago.
As soon as I typed in and added ley lines to QRP radio, anybody see anything interesting on the screen?
Oh, yeah. Bring it up.
There you go. And I had no knowledge of this.
I didn't either. This happened while you were talking about it. That is so awesome. That is awesome.
but also the ley line maps.
And then this grid over here, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I mean, they work so much better on the sort of standard flat Earth UN.
Yeah, I wish we could put that on the.
Well, bring that up.
As a
Ley
muffler.
lines on a flat Earth.
All right, hang on.
Yeah, I actually, my old Xanadude 60 logo used to have the ley lines overlaid on the flat Earth map.
Right, and that's
Thank you very much.
That's the image I'm thinking of.
Yep. Yes, Cammy did that. We did that.
She
5
got
years
it.
ago.
She
Yep.
got it.
He was the one that did it. There it is.
Can you bring it up? Because yeah, I did a flower of life with nodal points because we are nodals. So I don't know if you can, but it has all the nodal points in there. I feel
If
they're
you
very
have it,
important.
bring it up, Bob, because I just typed this in and got all kind of stuff.
I don't have it with me right in front of me. I think it's on my main machine, but
darn it.
And
It
I'm
was
on
good.
I'm on my laptop down in the living
Well,
room.
here's one that's on Pinterest. Oh, that's Ashley Webster. So
look at
that's
that.
pretty legit. I know Ashley pretty well. We used to talk a lot on Twitter. It's been a while.
Now, the elite, believe it or not, are very, very interested in these ley lines, especially this 181 ley line, which goes through Teotihuacan, and it goes up across the eastern United States and then up across the eastern seaboard. And what's interesting about this is that 181 ley line crosses every single major, quote unquote, false flag event
Right.
as it goes up.
I saw that.
I mean, they know about it, and it's very, very significant to them. So, that's
Does
all
it
I'll say
go
about
anywhere? Does it go anywhere through England? Hopefully in the Somerset Plains.
It might. I think it might have even gone through Stonehenge, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look it
I
up.
think
It's
so.
been a while since I looked at it. There's a guy on YouTube that specialized in researching just that ley line because
Yeah.
it's very significant.
I think me and Adam might have to pay a little visit to Stonehenge when he comes down.
That's one of the places I always wanted to visit. If I go to the UK, I wanted to visit Stonehenge, and also I want to see the crop circles.
Hey, sweetie,
Ditto, Bob.
what ley line is it that went between all of the churches on the line in England? Connected, all the chapels and.
Oh, I don't remember.
The Rose line.
The Rose line. Okay.
What number it was.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yep.
So to close up on the ham radio stuff, there's nothing that baffles you that says, this could be a globe. It's just...
Well, the one thing that I will say, and I have yet to see this, I have put out feelers is of course, the entire EME moon bounce thing, right?
Yeah.
I hear about that constantly. And the research that I did on it, as a flat earther, it seems like for whatever reason, having a signal being processed and coming back to you through the internet is an integral part of this. Now, to me, that's really suspicious. But assuming that they were doing this long before the internet, okay, and I'll even say, okay, yeah, they were, or they thought they were, or whatever. We don't really know what the moon is, but it is clear, at least to me, that it has some sort of electromagnetic property to it, right? And it could very well be, reflecting a signal back, and it may even be such a weird property that it's reflecting it back at the proper time, right? So it's supposedly 250,000 miles away, and at 186,000 miles per second, you're talking about a second and a half there, second and a half back. There could be a 3-second delay, but it could be caused by any other property of this EM plasma mystery that we really don't know a lot about. So,
like a medium change.
Yeah,
Sorry.
possibly like a refraction type of thing.
Who can really measure even a 3-second delay? I mean,
Well, it's
is
not
that
hard.
possible? Or?
Oh yeah, easily. We have instruments that are called TDRs, time domain reflectometers, that'll measure down in the nanoseconds as far as delays and stuff like that. So as far as the tech to be able to do it, yeah, it's there. And of course, if you apply that towards laser interferometry, and you guys have heard me talk about laser interferometry a lot, that's even more accurate, right? Because you're using literally phase differentials in light. Can
this be done off the sun as well as the moon?
Well, if you could send something to it, and supposedly they say they have, but again, because the sun is not, at least in my opinion, I don't believe that it is a physical terra firma thing.
Sure.
It's something else.
It does have magnetic properties, but it's also more of a disturbance than your lunar one. That I think you'd get more interference.
So do you think that means that there's more evidence that the moon is a physical terra firma thing, or could we just be bouncing off the dome?
I think it could be bouncing off the dome. In fact, I think that's one mode of propagation that they have talked about. There's a video out there that, the supposedly is a guy that was in the Defense Department. He's now on the run. And he was talking about, the elites found out about the dome a long time ago. And the reason that they were bombing, the upper atmosphere is they were trying to, fishbowl. And fishbowl is literally what they were supposedly trying to do was charge or ionize this dome. And what happens then is it gave it this very specific, strange property where it would bounce radio signals back at precisely the same angle that they came in at. In other words, it's not like a pool table, like when you hit a pool
like
ball.
a retro reflector.
Exactly, like a retro reflector, precisely.
Wow, the gravity. Sorry, Bob. The Gravity Hill in Indiana. If you look at that big purple circle and the big yellow circle, it's right where they cross.
Told ya.
So, like I said, if you can bounce something off the alleged moon and get a 3-second signal back, then surely you should be able to bounce something off the alleged sun and get a 3-second signal back. But I would imagine no one knows anyone that has ever done this. Although it may be possible, it's not.
I did hear McToon, that MC Toon guy. I think he was debating Adam, or maybe it was Adam or somebody else. He was saying, "Oh yeah, we know we put a radar signal off the sun, and whatever." But I doubt, at 93 million miles, it would have had a delay of 8.5 minutes, right? 8 1/3 minutes, or 16 minutes. Actually, you got to go there and back. So yeah, I doubt.
I imagine it would be 3 seconds, if anything.
Yeah, and if it is, boy, that's pretty strong proof that the sun and the moon actually are at the same distance, whatever they are, right?
Yeah, wouldn't it be? Yeah, if we could do that, then wouldn't it be amazing if the reply signal came back at the same rate as the moon?
And the person.
All I'd say on that, John, is tell me the medium between here and the moon, and then we can discuss the transmission rate between that medium, and then maybe we could discuss what the transmission rate meant in terms of distance.
It's within the Earth's atmosphere, so there has to be some oxygen.
Absolutely. There you go. You see, you assume the medium between the Earth and the moon and the Earth and the sun is the same.
The person to ask about this, assuming he wouldn't be breaking any of his security clearance oaths or whatever, would be Daytolan Media. But that guy works in DoD radar, for several contractors, Defense Department contractors, et cetera. And he, in FE Corps, he's made a few statements to some FE Corps members that frankly have blown my mind. and I really can't and shouldn't repeat them, but and I won't. But I mean,
man, right?
I can't. I mean, honestly, I don't want to get the guy in trouble.
No, I understand.
But
he's a special kind of guy, though.
Certainly extend an invitation for us if he would like to come on and talk about any of it. He is welcome anytime.
Yeah,
I was just watching his Florida video, and it's just unbelievable. To me, it's just so bloody obvious, but I'm not wrong in thinking that Mr. Tolan may think the Earth is moving.
He has made a statement that it could be interpreted that way, but I've yet to pin him down on it. And again, this goes to something, and I think honestly where that comes from, John, is the same thing that we have discovered with the ether, this rotational property of the ether. And really, it's not top secret or anything. It's something that was known going all the way back to Michelson Gale, right?
No, you're right. But it is a sort of a knife edge. You either go this way or that way. It seems anyway. I mean, I'm still sitting back, although I'm absolutely more on the side of we're detecting movement in the heavens above us. But other people, I don't know. It's I don't know.
Yeah, he is in a very unique position, let's put it that way. But there are some things that he may be required to say publicly, as far as this type of thing. In other words, he
Gotcha.
can't really say, and that would be expected, right? Because he would have to protect himself and anything like that. And that I understand. But
I mean, if I only had the fog results to go on, and that was it, then there would be doubt in my mind. But the truth is that it's what you say. It's the preponderance of evidence. It's the fog. It's Aries. It's Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale, Sagnac, gyroscopes. You name it. That it's just to highlight one issue and then go, okay, well that just means the we're on a spinning ball or whatever. Just seems irrational to me.
Yeah, I agree. There's enough evidence out there, and this is something I've always believed that, no matter what truth you are seeking, it seems to be a rule, a universal type of rule, that for those who are seeking specific truths and answers, they must be provided somewhere. Now, the way that they're provided, it could be put out there in jest and ridicule, or directly in your face, whatever. Um, I believe that that's kind of a rule that has to be adhered to, no matter how much deception. And the elites seem to play by that rule. And some people may see it that way, others may not. But I personally believe that that is the case. And I think that all the information that we really would be seeking, if we are earnest in our seeking of it, those answers will be provided. They will be forthcoming in some way or another.
Yeah, I think whatever you believe, there is a place for you on the internet somewhere.
Well, there's that too. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
So, yeah, and it goes, it goes into things that are much deeper. I mean, believe it or not, there's another area that I've never talked about, and someday I may, that deals with this realm, that I think is even a bigger secret than flat Earth. And that's something I just haven't really gone too public with. I've talked to Zach about it. He knows what I mean, but there is another layer of deception, and I think there's pretty strong evidence for it.
Well, Bob, no one's listening. You know that.
Yeah,
Come on,
you're aware that nobody will hear it. You're there.
This is like the confessional of the internet here. No one's listening, so you may as well tell us.
Yeah, it's something, maybe I wouldn't mind sharing it with you.
No, Bob, I wouldn't do it.
I'm only kidding.
Oh my God, you have no idea how much of a shitstorm that would cause, guys.
Oh, dude, this is so exciting. We have to talk sometime after the show.
Okay, kill the stream. Kill the stream.
All right, thanks, everybody. See you next week.
No, but to be honest, Bob, we entertain all sorts of things in our minds that we wouldn't necessarily tell other people around us. But I mean, we stick to the truth and what we can prove as much as we can. And I'm the biggest skeptic, or try to be the biggest skeptic on here. But yeah, it's good fun speculating, and one time out of a million, we're going to be right.
Yeah. Well, I think, in this particular subject that shall be remain undiscussed for now, I've been researching this particular thing almost the entire time I've been researching conspiracies in general. It's kind of pieced together, and believe it or not, there is a lot of direct and anecdotal evidence for this particular viewpoint. And it's also one of those things that when you really start thinking about it, it just makes a lot of sense. Wouldn't you say, Zach? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
You wouldn't let it lie. You wouldn't let it lie, would you, Bob? You've got to give us at least one word to go away and research.
Or at least about this? Can you give Zach permission to tell us off air under pain of death to never reveal what it is that he said?
Certainly.
All right.
Zach knows exactly what I mean. Zach and I have talked about it in depth, and he knows exactly what I believe about this, and the evidence for it. But again, like I said, if I started open about this publicly, the shitstorm that would be raised would be pretty epic.
Yeah.
But watch this, because I know how to shut both of those boys up. Okay, Google, broadcast dinner is ready.
Oh, jeez.
It's dinner time. It's dinner time.
Although you sound slightly anxious, Cammy.
No.
For the psychological assessment team, they shall be there in 5 minutes. I've locked the security doors for your own safety.
We were laughing so hard. Do you remember when we did this on the radio? When we did it on the radio, we learned something on it. I asked it a question, a measurement question, or on how many inches of snow. And when I did that and it played on the speaker in Bob's room at 3:30 in the morning, it activated his Google because it was my voice and activated it. So he got simulcast on the answer, both from hearing it on the show and hearing it directly from the speaker that was listening to the show and answered the show.
That was so funny.
Did you get a rectangle beam in your head, Bob?
I think he did.
Yeah. Right.
For you.
Not for
but,
me,
you know,
okay?
But, you know, everybody's on their own journey, and everybody has got to, you know, have these crazy thoughts to themselves and pursue them on their own, because obviously not everybody's reality or their truth is going to necessarily be the same, you know, and that's, you know, all I can say about that. It all goes down to the level at which you seek. And the answers will be forthcoming.
And almost all of our, what we perceive as truth and knowledge is probably wrong.
But God forbid you think something different than somebody else.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, truth, honestly, you know, and I've had this, and I do mean argument with some flat earthers or just people in general about the nature of truth. I mean, and I'll ask you guys, honestly, when it comes to truth, do you think that there is an ultimate objective truth, or would you say it's more subjective?
I think there's an ultimate objective truth. There is a truth that is true, and we just weave into it our own beliefs. That's what I think.
Okay.
How
Fair
about
enough.
sort of as above, so below? Sort of taking a step or a degree in masonry where you learn, it's what you learn is sort of their truth, but then you get that next degree and it's something completely different, but it doesn't make the first thing less true. It's just sort of an additional different way.
True on a different level.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. And which makes it a very interesting philosophical discussion. And I love those kind of discussions, even though I have gotten myself in more trouble than I care to on Globebusters by discussing things like that.
I'd kind of go with more along the lines of none of us have perfect eyesight. We've all got deficiencies, and they're all individual deficiencies in our vision of the truth, because we're not perfect beings.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll never visualize it properly. So I suppose the truth is the truth. What we're able to see of that truth is dependent on our vision.
Yeah, I agree with that. Or Adam, you could also, you know, look at that, come at that from a different direction and say, we are, in all of our imperfection, we are the embodiment of perfection. You know, I mean, it's, again, this is a perspective type of thing. What is imperfect, you know? And I don't know. It just gets really crazy. Like I said, it's also a very philosophical discussion.
It's also, like you were saying, Adam, it's like if we're all looking at truth, you know, if we can see around us truth, but we're all looking through it with different lenses. So, and these lenses have been calcified and built up since we were born. They were influenced by our parents, by our media, by everything we've learned. we all see the truth, but all see it through a different lens, and therefore we all see it differently.
Yeah, we've all got different bits of shit in our eyes.
Yeah, how's that for philosophical navel gazing?
Yeah, that's right up there with the best of it. So, but yeah, I mean, I like to go places like that. Philosophy is something that I've always considered to be very interesting, and I do think about a lot of things philosophically. Because I honestly do. I do question sometimes. Is there such a thing as an objective truth? And I understand the argument very well on both sides, and it's a really if you're really honest with yourself, it's a really difficult thing to come to terms with. I think.
Well, I think there is such a thing as objective truth, but I'm not sure whether each of us can see it or understand it, if you know what I mean. Ultimately, it exists, but whether us as people or humans can comprehend it or understand it is another thing without seeing it through our own personal lens.
Yeah.
And perverting it in doing so.
Right. Because we all see things through our own lenses, our own pair of glasses, if you will.
Yes, we do.
Right.
We do.
That's it. The lens always perverts it. That's what a lens does. It changes what you're looking at. So, yeah. Although all of us are looking around us at the truth, I don't know.
I think Bob Dylan said it best. We always did see the same. We just saw it from a different point of view.
There you go.
You
I feel a song coming on.
love that, right? Here's our first copyright strike of the evening. No, I'm just kidding. Well, Bob, I know the feeling, sometimes here on these splatter shows, we kind of stay on one path. But man, anytime you want to come hang out early in the morning, get up with Cammie, get that coffee going now that you're there, hang out with us on Ironworx. We definitely stray all over the place there. In fact, this morning we were rando nodding of all things with Nicholas Hinton, and it was quite
Explain randonauting, Walt, for those of us or those of people who didn't hear this morning.
So
I did, obviously.
Yeah, there are a team who put together this thing called the Fatum bot, and it is tied into a random number generating system. And there's so much here to succinctly say this in a little bit. So you put your coordinates into this system. It's all tied into Telegram right now, but they're about to come out with this app to make it simple. And the idea is to break out of your daily grind, your routine. You are so predictable in just about everything you do because of the tracking on all of the media we do, all the devices we carry, et cetera, your daily journey to work, to eat, to bill, pay, et cetera. It's all pretty repetitive and can pretty much be tracked out. So this idea is to take that and shake it up. And there's these areas that are created by this random generator and the map. And you either go to a place of attracted concentration, or like I did when I first started experimenting with it, you go to the negative, the void areas where there's not an attraction of these intent, sometimes driven points of interest. And it's all about the path. And it's really all about going outside like we used to do before we were all trapped in these machines. But to hear Nick explain it, it's a lot more succinct and in-depth. And go check it out. It's over there on the Ironworx, for sure.
Yeah, Zach was telling me about it this morning, and yeah, it sounded very intriguing. I'm going to listen to it for sure. Probably later this evening, because it sounds very interesting. Might be right up my alley.
It's fun. I could imagine that where you guys there would, getting lost in mountain trails and things like that. It would be amazing. Just here, like the few times I did it, definitely some interesting trips. Found some interesting. Met up with a guy I hadn't seen in 10 years. That kind of thing. So yeah, it takes me back to when I used to kind of just do that, just hop in the car and head out, just wherever, no destination, just hit the road. Me and friends, me and family. My mom was big on that when I was growing up, so I kind of was carrying it on with my kids. Yeah, love that idea, just randomly doing something without a plan.
Bob, what are you eating?
He's
Mexican
eating
hamburger.
a freaking
Oh,
Mexican burger, man. You all know what he's eating, savage. No need to rub it in, is there?
I'm trying to mute every time I take a bite, though. I'm sorry if I.
Yeah, you don't have to. No. It wasn't taking a bite that gave it away. It's I don't know what it is, but after years of listening to MP3s in quiet sheds, I can tell when you're smiling, when you eat it. I can name every dim sim that Adam eats. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, just making my mouth water.
Yeah, it's really good too. We have this place in Denver called Burritos and Company, and I go there. I've been going there for years because they make the most killer breakfast burritos ever. And the secret to it, of course, is their green chili. And as anybody knows, there is just nothing like a really good green chili. You can put it on anything, and it makes it dynamite. And so we bought some of their green chili and put it on, hamburgers and a tortilla. It's just smoking good, so good.
What time is it over there?
Yeah.
It's 5:55.
Ah, yeah.
Welcome to the Flat Earth Feed Bag with our host, Bob Knodel.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning here, and you're making me hungry.
Well, if I could beam some of this over to you, I would.
Right? Where's that 3D printer, man?
It's really good.
I love it. Well, I've had a ball tonight. I've had a great fun. I think it's almost time to bugger off for me. Although, yeah, I'll just say my goodbyes now and then come back in later.
For now, right. And he's down for one, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, fair enough. Well, good talking to you, John. And I probably will join you one of these nights, early in the morning, and maybe we can even, after Zach covers it with you, you can tell me whether or not you think it's safe to discuss.
Absolutely, man. That'd be amazing. Absolutely.
We can do that off air.
Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, we'll do it off air for sure, but we'll see if it's going to wind up on air.
And it's not that it's anything bad, but let's just say that some people that are, heavily religiously biased would be really against even, even going there as far as a discussion.
I mean, it goes against the Bible.
Well, no, not necessarily. It actually, there's a lot of things in the Bible that support it, but it's a matter of interpretation, I would say.
There we go again. There's the lens, isn't it?
Yep, indeed it is.
The lens, right?
We can all see the truth, but it has to be through the lens.
Mm-hmm. And some of it is actually taking directly verbatim what the Bible says and applying it to this idea. So, yeah. Anyway, I won't tease anymore on it.
See, I know you just cleared a nice bit of something from the back of your tooth there. Oh, it tasted really good.
I did.
Wow. Virtually, that tasted great. Right. Adios, guys.
All right. See you later, John.
Later, John.
Oh, my goodness.
After all these years, we finally learned John's secret talent.
Right? Everybody's got one.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it, too.
Nuts. Yeah, it's spooky.
So not this Friday, because today is
I want to know
Friday.
where his camera's at.
They're everywhere.
He's AI. We keep telling you guys.
Yes, but for him, that means alcohol induced.
So not this Friday, but the coming up Friday.
Or the Friday after that, the 28th. The Friday, the 28th. I'm going to try to finagle my wife to at least come down for a few minutes and try to explain what it's like having to live with me.
That should be an interesting story.
I think so. And I'm hoping Adam can convince Marie to pop into the shed for a few minutes, and maybe Walt can get Shell to come in for a few minutes, and maybe Zach can get Hank to pop on for a few minutes.
I guarantee you we could get Hank to say a few words.
Oh, yeah. He'll sing for you.
Yeah, he will.
It's just a Valentine's Day show that I've been wanting to do for years. Just to have our spouses that have never really been on except accidentally when they didn't realize they were on camera. Just to come on and give their perspective of what it's even been like having to deal with, the spouse of someone who has to get up at 3 a.m. to do a show twice a week.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the grumpiness it brings about at times.
Yeah, it's even bizarre for me, honestly, because, Cammie usually likes to go to bed pretty early, and I'm a night owl. I don't usually crash until 1 or 2 in the morning. But, it's weird that she will fall asleep early because she wants to get up, at 3 or 2:30 or whatever time you guys start, to do the show. And then she disappears out of the room, which is just weird.
Hey, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Last night you turned my phone off, and when you turned my phone off, I didn't hear the call, and I slept through the show this morning.
My bad. I did do that. I don't like to have the cell phones on at night. I try and turn them off so we're not getting irradiated.
Right.
So I won't.
At the very least, I put mine on airplane if I'm not wanting to turn it off. But if I have to charge it or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't do that again. I didn't even think about that, especially so on Monday nights and Thursday nights. Then don't do that.
That's
okay.
it.
Right.
My bad.
But it did feel good to sleep in this morning, and I was feeling a little bit under the weather. So sometimes things happen for a reason.
Yeah, the SAG told us you were feeling great, so I'm glad you rested. I'm glad you rested.
So sometimes things happen for a reason. There was no harm done on this one at all. I think it was just meant to be. And usually the secret to the fact that you notice that I'm out of the room and I disappear, I am a lighter sleeper than you, but the last few shows I've been, when I'm in the room with you, I've been waking up 5 minutes before the alarm goes off and going and shutting it off. So it's not gone off at all in the room. It's been very quiet. That didn't happen this morning. I didn't wake up until 4:35, just in time to see that the show was almost over and to watch DPS in action cancel school for the day and go shut off my son's alarms. So everybody was confused this morning. It's like, nope, I happen to know there was no school.
Jaron was totally happy about it, though, and who can blame him? Everybody used to love snow days, right?
Only the free ones, the ones I didn't have to make up in the summer.
Well, there is that, yeah. But no, when it came to school and snow days, those are just the best.
Yeah, any day today I didn't have to go to school was a good day, no matter when it was.
Today was horrible. Oh my God, it's been just viciously snowing. Well, ever since yesterday. Hardcore snow, there's quite an accumulation. It's probably getting close to a foot, isn't it, Cammie?
No, we really don't have as much accumulation here. We have probably close to 6 or 7 inches. Now, the funny thing about it is we're to the far eastern tip of Denver, and the storm gets a lot worse the further west you go. I don't know if you're aware of this, sweetheart, but all day long, and I think it's still closed, I-70 has been closed from Golden to the Eisenhower tunnels, and the Eisenhower tunnels are closed on both sides of it, have had avalanches on them.
Oh, nice.
And avalanche mitigation. And Summit County is under civil alarm or civil emergency, meaning that they basically they've had like 3+ feet of snow, and there's no way to get in or out of there. All the hotels are full, and all the office building parking lots and office buildings are filling people up because you can't get through the tunnel, and the other way takes you deeper into the storms. So we've had it quite mild here by comparison, even though it feels nasty.
Are those the tunnels we went through?
Yes, those long tunnels we went through, they had avalanches on both sides of them. And so the tunnel is closed, and basically I-70 from city of Denver to the tunnels is closed. So
isn't that the difference between men and women, Cammie? We reckon it's about 12 inches, and you say now it's between 5 and 7.
Between 5 and 7. Took me a minute, but yeah, ain't that always the truth? But well, you know what it is with me is I don't know if you guys know this, but my maiden name is Polish, and it's Polish for ruler. Just in case any of you guys are like wondering what kind of ruler, yes, somebody that measures, somebody that goes around and measures things.
I thought awesome. A specific ruler there.
Yeah, a specific type of ruler.
I think those are called scales.
But one who measures.
We call those scales.
Scales, yeah.
Rulers are for voters. voting
Well, I
sheep.
don't know. It almost does
Nobody
it
needs a
more in
ruler.
measuring, not weighing, but measuring. And I happen to have, I have like 5 millimeter gauges, different old type gauges. I'm rulers galore. I'm fascinated with measurement and where it came from in the arc seconds and that. But I thought I didn't learn until later on. It's like, oh, cool. I'm a ruler. Am I royalty? No, I'm somebody that goes around with a little measuring stick. So it made perfect sense. I shut down the crew.
I did because you did, right?
I did. They're all eating the Mexican
Yeah,
hamburger.
because
Yep, everybody's munging.
I had to run down and get a little cheese and meatball with a few pickles. 'cause you got me so hungry.
Oh, that sounds good.
I went and grabbed a handful of chips myself just to clear myself through the show. Yep.
Hey,
You did it to us all, Cammy. Thanks.
I know. Bob, would you like a second one? There is extra.
Oh God, no, I'm stuffed. That was delicious.
Yeah, it was a lot of food. I piled it on.
Yeah, that was a big hamburger. Really good though.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. Thank
that
you
was
for coming on and doing the radio because your wife that was not feeling good. I did want to have some more stuff and redo a presentation, but it wasn't to happen this week where every step forward I took, I went too backward. So thank you for walking the walk with me, sweetie.
No problem. Yeah, I'm glad at least I could get those questions answered because and Owen Benjamin wanted to know a lot of those things also at FBIC because he had heard very similar things and it amazes me that the ballers they hear this stuff and for the longest time I believed a lot of it too. For example, when you talk about skip or the phenomenon of why ham radio operators say that they can talk all the way across the world. Well, they say it's skip, and essentially what that is it's when you transmit, it goes up, it hits the ionosphere, it comes down, bounces off the Earth, and then it goes up and hits the ionosphere, and then comes down, bounces off the Earth, and it does this several times, going around the Earth. And then, of course, after becoming a flat earther and really thinking it through and coming to my senses, it's like, you know what? Things do not bounce off of Earth. They may bounce off things on Earth, a metal top building or stuff like that. But like any electrical signal, its nature is to return to ground. So anything that would be going towards Earth, ground, is going to stay there because it's the natural law, electrically and anything else for things to return to Earth ground. So the notion that these radio signals are bouncing off of the Earth and then returning to the sky that's just silly. And I can't believe I ever believed that. But there's a lot of things I can't believe I ever believed, right?
Right. My buddy that was at the station with me here last Wednesday when we were talking about all this, that was the same thing he presented to us when we talked about it. And then after the meeting, he hung out for a few hours and we talked about all that again. And I'm like, come on, man, just think it through. Wouldn't it think about sound and how sound has, once it bounces off 2 or 3 walls, you've lost any cohesion and sense of it. And just that is a sound engineer, which is what he does. I'm thinking, can't you put it in that, like sound waves equal to how would that go around the ball and the air and the atmosphere? Come on, dude.
Right. Or light. And here's
light. Exactly.
Yeah. Here's a big thing. People think about this for a minute. You know how they're trying to tell us that these lights are traveling for hundreds of years. When they say light year, a light year, that means light traveling for a year, 100 light years, 1,000 light years, on and on and on. They're telling us that light is going on without any attenuation or essentially no attenuation because it's in a vacuum. Well, you know what? I guarantee you that if you took a mirror, right, a box, and it was nothing but mirrors, right, and you put it inside of a vacuum and you turned on a light inside of that box, well, it's going to bounce around that light all over the place, and there's going to be light there as long as there is a perturbation initially from that source light, right? But the second you turn it off, if light in an unattenuated and vacuum environment was true, it would continue to go around, and there would be a sustain. There would at least be somewhat of a dampening, right? But no, it would go out absolutely instantaneously. Which
I love that. I love that.
That alone should think that through. That alone should tell people that light cannot travel infinitely. It just doesn't work that way. And not only that, light is not traveling it is a perturbation or a rate of induction into the ether. And when you really start thinking about light in those terms, it makes a whole lot more sense. So, but even if you believe that it's a wave or a particle or whatever, which is
Or
nonsense,
both, or neither, or whichever. When you
or both or neither, right?
Do you not believe it stops because you turned it off?
Right. Yeah. Well, no, because theoretically it should keep bouncing around in there forever, right?
once it hits that mirror infinity, right?
Right. It should
Like
the
looking
very
at the
least-
mirrors when you're at the barber shop and you're seeing yourself into infinity. It should.
Right.
I wasn't being flippant though. I was being quantum.
I know. I get it. I know.
Hey, Walt.
Wah, wah, wah.
Well, we used to have a bathroom that was above the waist, all mirrors all around you on four sides, and it was the freakiest
I'm sure.
place to be. I don't know why or who they designed it, but it was a strange place to be. It even had like a little laundry chute that was done in mirrors that you'd open in that. And again, it was a brilliant thing to have for a family that had 5 kids. No trouble there, cleaning all the glass all the time.
I would feel like I was in the Enter the Dragon movie.
Yeah,
I would like
really.
that.
This house that I grew up in was an older house, and it was very cool that it had, first of all, it had 5 stories in the laundry chute. It had a big in the basement, like a cage, but you could crawl into the cage, and if you were little enough, you could crawl up the laundry chute and peek out 5 different floors through, like into the bathrooms. Kind of wrong, but cool. Probably dangerous, things you did as a child when you were little enough. But it had and a little intercom system and a hidden door. And I remember my brother used to, this is terrible, but my brother used to like call on the intercom to my little sister and say he was Santa Claus and she was bad and not getting a thing. And it was very effective. But then we grew up. We laughed and grew up.
Mean and funny.
Yeah.
All at the same time.
It was one of those all at the same time. But yeah, that's what you do when you have brothers and sisters is you have fun with them.
We almost do have the whole Brady Bunch thing going on.
Damn near.
I
Damn
see
near.
Elon join the conversation. He's been quiet though.
Smoking up
He's
a storm.
he's enjoying himself. So leave him alone right now.
Who joined?
Elon Musk in the bottom right-hand corner. You have to look at the thumbnail or the show in action. It's on the big screen if you turn around.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I've got the chat popped out and overlaid over the
I see it now.
So
We're actually, he has to turn around. He's in the living room and I'm in the family room. We're on the same floor back to back. Just there you go.
oh, I see it. Okay. So who's Elon?
Elon Musk. He's in the bottom corner.
I know that, but who is it really?
Oh, I just overlaid it.
Just a picture.
Oh, okay. I thought it was another visitor in the chat.
We could have guests with a special guest every week.
We could.
Our imaginary friends that don't talk much.
Yeah, Hawken could join in. He could even talk.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sakes, man.
The burger made me hungry
Trouble
too.
is that, right? Once you start with him, he never shuts up.
Right, especially about the burgers. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, you guys remember the day I had Bilu introduce Globebusters?
Yeah.
Oh, I do.
That was hilarious. I thought that was great. It was right around the time that the convex Earth thing came out, and then Jaron and I found out that the guy that was the head of Convex Group was talking to aliens in bushes, and so we were
Bilu
taking
in the
so much
bush.
heat over that. I decided that Bilu should introduce Globebusters the following weekend. So we had fun with that.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think we forget sometimes to have fun and to laugh and to look around and see the good stuff and that it's okay to laugh and giggle, sometimes. I always like it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't followed those guys since then, but there's a part of me almost that feels bad about kind of distancing ourselves from it. But by the same token, I just didn't think it was a good idea. We're already in enough controversy with flat Earth without having to try and tie it to somebody that talks to aliens in the bushes, But other than that, it seemed to me that those guys were at least putting forth some effort in
Good
some of their
research.
research.
Yeah.
And I felt bad. I felt a little guilty about that.
Same with that,
As soon as I
Bob.
saw the curved water or curved something in their video presentation, I was a little less feeling bad.
They had kind of they called it convex, but it was like it looked like a big soup bowl or something. Their model of the flat Earth. That topically it was still flat, but underneath it was kind of round, and it was hard to describe. But they were flat earthers, and I don't know why they called themselves the convex Earth group exactly.
It was an avocado, a space avocado.
Yeah,
by the way.
exactly. That's good, Josh. A space avocado. That's kind of what it looked like too, a big avocado.
But I do
that's
remember at some
hysterical.
point they were presenting wide, curve and whatnot. And it was the old argument where they're looking through the hump instead of on top of the ball. That old thing.
Right.
Josh, don't get rid of that voice, right? That's why we're here. This week, right, it was Arwen's birthday. So I want to say happy birthday to him. Keep that voice, mate. Will you do him an happy birthday and that?
You can have Bilou sing him a happy birthday.
Yeah, come on. Come on. Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Arwen. Happy birthday to you.
Yay. Okay, I hate to say this, but Bilou needs an auto tuner.
Sings better than I do, sweetheart.
Well, there is that.
Well, happy birthday, Owen, my mate. It was, believe it or not, guys, Owen's
Indeed. Happy birthday, brother.
40.
For sure.
How old was he?
40.
40.
40. Wow.
Wow. I remember 40. And Patricia's birthday was also this week. She's 57.
Happy birthday, Patricia, for
I
sure.
remember 40 like it was 19 years ago.
Like it was a while ago. Thank you, Bob. Yep.
A long time ago in a place far, far away. Yeah, 40 didn't bother me. 50 did. 40 not so much, but 50.
50 is the new 30, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You just keep telling
And then
yourself
right on a
that.
flat earth, it'd be like 20, 25, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Y'all remember Logan's Run? We'd be long gone.
What? I haven't watched that in so long.
I'm probably only one of the few people old enough to remember Logan's Run. How old were they that they went into the middle? Were they 30 or?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bob is coming up on turning the big 6-0.
What
will be
colour is the
another-
crystal on your wrist, Cammy? That's the question.
What?
Explain the crystal.
When,
on my-
when on Logan's Run, the crystal on your wrist started flashing.
That's right. That's
So you had to-
right. When it was time to go.
Yeah. I'm old enough as well, mate.
I was going to ask something about how many navels you have, but I think that was Earth 2 I'm mixing that up with. Yeah, I'm really old.
I'll just say I was Air Force, not Naval.
Where is the rim shot, John?
Dumb.
Who remembers? Who remembers?
Not
I
that kind of
think it
show, Walt.
Was it Gary Collins? But who remembers a show called The Sixth Sense?
I
Because that
do.
used to come on, and I remember growing up and seeing The Sixth Sense. And most people, I don't know. I wondered if it was real until Bob was like, "Me too, me too." But I remember it being a big show.
Yeah, it was. It was Gary Collins. So yeah, a long time ago. I was a kid when we used to watch that. We still lived in near downtown Denver when that show was on. Early 70s.
Yep, that's about right. That's what I remember, and yeah, a whole stretch of the shows like that. By night, it was around the same time as Night Gallery.
Right.
I used to watch a show called Hardcastle and McCormick.
I remember that.
I used to love that show. And that was one of those that was never, it might have been big at one time, but when I watched it, it was like on Chicago's Channel 50.
That was Brian Keith, wasn't it?
I don't even remember their names.
Pretty sure Hardcastle was Brian Keith or McCormick. One of them was, but I'm pretty sure Brian Keith was in that show.
That's Family Affair guy.
Yeah, that's the Family Affair guy. Exactly.
The old guy with white hair.
That's him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, my favorite show is A Little Girl, and it makes no sense now because it's not something. It's something. I mean, I used to have the albums from it and play it, and it was the late '60s, and I would have been too young probably to get it. But it was the Smothers Brothers, and I mean, I had a Smothers
Dude, that was the most
record, and
amazing.
I mean, it was like I did too. I lived for
Saturdays and the Smothers
Brothers. Okay, so
my
I'm not the only one. That I thought that was the
insane. I went back and watched to see what did I lose my mind when I was a kid? Was it really that bizarre? It is so off the wall. Go check it out on YouTube, Cammy. It'll break your brain.
Oh, I did too. I
And they're
looked up
so
the other.
talented. It's like these dudes were awesome.
They did something
I'm nerding out now.
Yeah, they did the I'm Not a Pilot. I would suggest everybody look up the I'm Not a Pilot thing that they did on another show on, I don't know, some other thing where they were older and came back and talked. And I about wet my pants on it as they were explaining that no matter how many frequent flyer miles you get, they never upgrade you to pilot. But
Yep. Tommy Smothers was a stitch. That guy is so funny.
Yeah, didn't they get like taken off the air?
They did.
Yeah.
Speaking a little too truthful.
Yep.
Yes.
Political crap, right.
Like they were the #1 hit in the country, #1 show in the country, and then all of a sudden they said something and they were just gone.
Exactly. They were completely blackballed, completely taken down. They crossed the political line and just disappeared. But yeah,
and guitarists too. They could really play. They weren't just comedians. They actually jammed.
they had talent up there. Like I said, I had their albums and I mean, I still remember A Bag of Chocolate and Apples and Peaches and Cherries and all of the, I mean, they were good. They were really, makes you again look back and see. Mad Pieman, I was a 70s child too, a 60s child and a 70s child, but I was pretty little in the 60s. Reading the chat a little bit. Diva loved the Twilight Zone, yes.
The Twilight Zone was older. They were okay. But I was really into the X-Files. That was big when I was in the 90s when I was growing up.
Me too.
Right. That was great. I loved it too. But I'm still old school. Like I loved all the old night galleries and
Yeah. X-Files was really, really good, but we were all grown up then. It wasn't a child. That's not a childhood memory. That's
Oh, I wasn't. I was in my
okay,
teens.
baby.
he's
Yeah.
a kid. He's a kid. Family here.
There was a lot of truth in those old X-Files, I think.
Oh well, yeah.
Yep. Like most things, you know. And I wonder, you know, on some of the shows that they have today, how much truth, you know, hidden truth there is, you know, like on another level. You know, I mentioned on Jaronism earlier, that even though obviously I don't believe in space the way it's been being portrayed anymore, I always was and probably always will be a Star Trek fan. And we just started watching the new Star Trek Picard series, and I think that's going to be really good. We've got three episodes under our belt, and it's starting to build. I think it's going to be a really, really good story. And I'm just wondering how many truth nuggets are going to be kind of filtered through that show.
We certainly look at things differently when we see them now, and it's fun. You know, you pick up all the coding and all of the different things in the background. And there's so many times that I wanted to stop the TV, screenshot it, and said I'd make the best video, but life goes on. It's interesting again looking at it through eyes that see.
Yep, that's it too. Or you know, some people could call it just confirmation bias. Oh, you just see it that way because you believe this.
Right. That's what I hear often. Too often.
And part of that could be true. You know, no denying it. But you know, I think that our point is just as valid. For sure, they do put that stuff right out in front of our face. I mean, we've got countless examples of it that are absolutely undeniable. I mean, The Simpsons alone could fill a book, right?
That's spooky at times, really spooky.
Cammy broke us a couple of weeks ago with the Back to the Future with the Antarctica.
Oh yeah, the speaker blowout.
Jesus.
Yeah,
that was so cool. When I was talking about something, and I said, yeah, and they reinforce stuff like that, like in Back to the Future. And Iru piped in with, the whole story of Marty McFly and how when he blew out the speaker, it made the shape of Antarctica. And I thought that was awesome. And then Seventh Day Truth Seeker actually made a video, and he timed it perfectly with that conversation to when the second, Marty walks in the door at the beginning of the movie. It shows the flat Earth clock, all that stuff. It shows him turning up all the knobs on it. And, right when I said the part about, or right when Iru said the part about how, Antarctica popped out, that's exactly when it happened. He timed it perfectly. But I mean, even so, it was just serendipitous the way that the entire conversation flowed so beautifully from the start of the movie to that particular scene. I couldn't believe it. Just really weird.
Yeah, that really broke my brain.
Yeah. So much stuff. I mean, somebody, I keep forgetting who did it. Somebody did a whole really in-depth analysis on the Back to the Future trilogy, and how it relates to everything today. Just kind of mind-bending stuff.
Yeah, I forget who it is, but Crow said he was going to cover it, I believe, in one of these upcoming episodes. He's planning
There's some
on.
pretty nuts stuff. There really is.
Yeah.
I went back and kind of re-examined it just to see if that wasn't one of those confirmation bias things, and it's just in your face. Some of it,
Yeah.
all of it. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Well, right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I listen to this, and I go back to the early noughties sort of thing, and Bob mentions it, particularly Gene Roddenberry. And if you put yourself into all that synergy, allegory with regards to his stuff that was like linked with the movement around that time, then it's one of those things that makes me wary, even with the seeing flat Earth maps. I ain't got a flat Earth map. You know what I mean? Seeing flat Earth maps and stuff in the media. It's one of those things that I like, but part of me is wary from the shit I used to believe.
Well, just knowing the things I know about how movies are put together and set dressing and building sets and things, nothing you ever see on camera in a movie or on TV is by accident. Somebody sent around a picture earlier from, I think it was Sesame Street, where the bookcase had fiction on top of it to let you know it was a fiction section of the bookcase. And right behind the sign that says fiction is a globe and a rocket. So, I mean, nothing they put in your face is an accident. It's all that secondary magic, lesser magic, Duper's Delight, the whole.
Oh, yeah. I remember a DuckTales episode Disney made, and Scrooge McDuck was getting his eyes checked. And the eye chart actually says, in like how an eye chart would be, the E at the top, except this was an A. And it spelled out "ask about Illuminati."
Yep.
I mean, that's like blatant in your face.
DuckTales. Woo!
Well, they had the AE map in the back of their logo on that show. That was part of the logo of DuckTales.
Yeah.
Because I spent that whole little period early in the awakening looking at everything, seeing the map just about everywhere I looked. So, yeah.
I know my mind always wants to know how everything works, so I've had not one bored moment or even one. I'm always so far behind what I want to know and what I want to learn and trying to absorb, and it's been a rush.
I've got a. Should I say? So if we're talking about media, I've got a little link. Walt. I got a little bit of gossip this week that next week on UK TV, Mr. Sargent might appear on the same program that Gary, Martin, and his name's.
Yeah, I did. Somebody in chat this morning in Ironworx dropped that on us. I believe it was either Diva or Dawn.
Yeah, so I think that he might be appearing on.
The 80s.
So,
sorry, I can't remember who.
stuff, the subliminal stuff, coming up again in the mainstream, even though Flat Earth's dying, guys, it's dying. Yeah, it's popping up. So good luck, Mark. Good luck, fella.
Absolutely. I wonder if they brought Douglas to get Mark on. Is what they were asking in chat this morning.
just one little thing. Good luck, but obviously, if you say anything that makes any of us look slightly ridiculous, we'll punch you down.
Oh, we're gonna mess you up, dude.
Yeah,
we'll Snoop Dogg you.
Dead on YouTube. Good luck, Mark.
Yeah, he does really well.
Yeah.
In those interviews and stuff. Well, he's got it down. You know, he hears the same questions over and over and over, and he's got it to how he answers them and the stories that go with it. And
he's pretty much impossible to trigger, which is, helpful.
That is helpful. I get passionate myself sometimes, so yep.
He and David both. I mean, it's funny. I mean, David and Mark are unquestionably two of the best emissaries for Flat Earth we have. Period. They're both truly. And Mark still to this day gets all this flack about being a shill, and I've never believed that for 1 second, and I certainly don't now. But I look at what he does and all the connections he's made and all the things that he's done for Flat Earth. And it's just phenomenal. The guy lives and breathes it. He is the most dedicated individual towards Flat Earth that I've ever met, honestly. And, it really kind of steams me when people say, oh, he's just out here shilling for the globe. It's just, ignorance when people say that. They can't see the obvious. And these are flat earthers, and that really bugs me,
Indeed.
I think what happens is, again, the noisy minority gets things running, but I know that I had a complete awakening on it. I never did think he was this shill, actually. I like Mark, but a awakening that did come when I was working the conferences and checking people in on registration. And I asked hundreds and hundreds of people how they learned about Flat Earth. And the amount of times I heard his name spoke volumes. And it's like, well, if this is a shill, I want more.
Yeah.
I want more people. You give them 100. Yeah.
We need 100 Mark Sargents for sure. So, yeah. And David, he's right there too. I mean, he's doing absolutely amazing work. And I'm not trying to take away from any of the content producers. We've got a fabulous community. We really do. But, just the exceptional ambassadorship that Mark and David have provided, I think is so noteworthy.
It's tough to get out there sometimes and not get tripped up by the media tricks, because they will do everything they can to get you excited, get you upset, get you triggered. Yeah, they handle it really well.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah, David on Alex Jones, when Alex was just being an ass, I was
exactly. Yes, exactly.
I was very impressed. It was nice having Eddie Bravo there being like, okay, shut up and let the man talk.
I know that, and that was something else. Alex Jones, he sits there when David's on, and he's every 2 seconds interrupting him, then Mr. Skepticism, and then he just hands over the entire platform to Mike Adams, to talk about bullshit like, well, yeah, the aliens are all harvesting our stars, and they're taking. It's like, really? Are you serious? I couldn't even believe anybody would take that seriously. Oh yeah, let's make Dyson spheres. It's like, yeah, that's a great idea, but putting it in practical terms, it's one of the most absurd things anybody could ever even attempt to undertake. And he speaks about it so matter of factly, like it's no problem. Let's just build Dyson spheres, and those damn aliens are harvesting our stars doing that. That's why all of our stars are disappearing, because the aliens are harvesting them. It's like, I caramba.
Yeah, such nonsense.
Mike Adams seems like such a patronizing, disingenuous dick. I don't know. I just don't like
totally. I agree, Josh.
Josh, can you tell me what you really feel about the man? I mean, don't be shy. Don't hold anything back, okay? I just want you to tell me how it is.
You know, I try not to, and I try not to say things that I wouldn't say to somebody's face, but I'm not entirely sure that I wouldn't tell Mike Adams, if he were on this call right now, that he comes across like a patronizing, disingenuous dick.
I know I wouldn't have any problem saying it to him. So thank you for
Yeah.
speaking for a lot of us.
Cammy, I actually have to look the man square in the eyes and say, sorry. There's stars disappearing because aliens are harvesting them for energy.
Oh my God.
And the next sentence out of your mouth I'm supposed to take seriously. You joker. Do you know what I mean? What
You
an
call
absolute,
flat Earth crazy?
what a buffoon. Do you know what I mean, Bobby? It's beyond
Totally.
ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous.
Totally, Adam. 100%. It is absolutely amazing what people will accept and what they will reject, no matter how much evidence, empirical evidence, logical evidence, whatever you want to bring to the table. Flat Earth has this mountain of preponderance of evidence, and people will reject it hand wave sight unseen, and yet some clown gets on there and says aliens are harvesting our stars, that's why they're disappearing, because they're harvesting them for energy. And oh yeah, that's fine, yeah, no problem. It's unbelievable. And it's no wonder the elites laugh at us. It's sad, but it's true.
It's the beauty of authority.
Oh yeah, the other plan has worked.
Yeah, masterfully. I mean, it really has.
The American public believe almost exactly the opposite, of the truth.
Yeah. And it's not just dumb Americans.
I
either.
can't have a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I get that so often, especially from people overseas. Oh, you Americans are so stupid. Your education system has failed you. And, to that, I would say, yeah, you're right. They failed to indoctrinate us. And that's where they failed us. And thank God for that. That's all I can say. And, if your education system hasn't failed you in that way, I feel sorry for you, So, but yeah, I hear that so often because it's not just Americans. The whole world is under this spell. Some people are a lot more aware of it than others. And, just like the rest of us, there's this feeling of desperation because it is so easy to stop. If everybody woke up at the same time and simply said, we're not going to play this anymore, that would be the end of it. But
Yeah, that would be so easy.
yeah,
We do outnumber them quite a bit.
oh man, do we? But there's so many people that are so asleep and so hypnotized, that they
Well,
will.
they're afraid they might get the coronavirus drinking Corona beer. Bob, haven't you heard?
Oh, I know. Did you guys see that video? That chick that was dumping out all the guys' Corona?
Yes. Oh my God.
That was hilarious.
Speak about indoctrinated and under a spell. I found in the last week, I don't know when he wrote it, but I found a review by Danny Faulkner of the Flat Earth International Conference in Dallas. And not only did he, of course, go there and write a review of my husband's performance, which he took basically just didn't address the facts that he couldn't deal with. I thought that was he just didn't bring him up. Go ahead, Bob, and say what he did on.
Oh my God, yeah. He took Cammy's presentation and basically did a hand wave dismissal of it at 100%, right?
But then he went out and bought a miroscope.
Yeah, then he bought a miroscope and he starts looking at this seriously. And then, of course, like mine, rather than address, the points that I was making, of course, the primary points that I was talking about were, of course, the inverse square law and angular size, right? And he didn't bother going through, all the math like he has, done previously. And the one thing that I thought was really telling that he didn't address at all, which is a complete shocker, was my analysis of the ISS about how in the world is it, reflecting that light perfectly into our eye when it takes a very specific, angle to do this. And of course, the example I gave was a bunch of people playing with mirrors and, flashing around and trying to hit a specific target, right? Well, the ISS, the reason that they say it's visible to us is because it's reflecting, not because of its angular size, but because it's reflecting that intense sunlight down to our eye. But it would have to be such a very specific target. So the question is if it's doing this, how is it doing it for a distance of almost 3,000 miles across the country? But then, if I can see it from Denver and it, throughout this 3,000-mile journey, and the people across the other side of Denver can also see it at the same time, there's never any flickering like you would get with a mirror being reflected, right? That never happens. So why is it then that all the people are not seeing the ISS traverse at the same time as it goes over the country? It has to be specific zones that see it at specific times. Well, obviously the answer is because it's something that's at low altitude that it can only be seen locally, right? Well, Danny Faulkner did not address that at all. I mean, that presentation was so devastating that he couldn't even address that at all. He had no rebuttal whatsoever for it. And that was so telling in and of itself, because historically, Danny Faulkner takes every word I say and tries to rip it apart, but not on that one. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's a huge tell.
Now, on this, and I just want to say on it, Bob does a main show presentation, and Danny Faulkner does do his best to just listen and tear apart my husband's every word. But one of our biggest shockers is Zach and I did a little workshop presentation with hands-on and videos and that, and lo and behold, one of the first person sitting there was Danny Faulkner taking notes left and right at our seminar. Which I thought was interesting because he is a religious writer, and who was on the main stage opposite us was Nate Wolf. You would think it would be exactly, Nate Wolf would be more up his alley than ours. His main problem with our presentation was basically his inability to pay attention to himself or read and understand. He had a problem because he thought the title of the workshop, which was called How the World Works, was going to be a picture of a map instead of discussing how the world works with electricity and again all of the different magnetism perspective. We discussed how the world worked, but he had a predetermined notion what the workshop was going to be, and it wasn't that. So that was his main criticism: is it didn't match what he made up in his mind that it was supposed to be.
Even though we had a trailer out, a month before
saying exactly what it would
what
be
we were
about.
going over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even though maybe he had the comprehension of the difference between works and looks like.
Well, exactly. Again, it's just that we didn't say, if I was presenting, here is the map in reality in detail, and I know all of the answers and I'm ready to defend it. I think I would have put it out. Here's the map, not how the world works. So I did think it was funny that, again, his main problem with our seminar was is he didn't pay attention to the title or make any, try to make any logic out of it. But the other thing that really tickled my fancy is because we were discussing different possibilities, and one of the possibilities was if the firmament is described as a vault of looking glass, it might function as a miroscope. And we did miroscope hands on. I did find it fun that the first thing he did when he got home was he ordered a miroscope off of Amazon. So I did take kudos, and I got a lot of giggles from that.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, that guy is a piece of work, I'll tell you. And again, these guys get PhDs, and it seems like, with the exception of, there are some exceptions, the exception of like Rodrigo and stuff like that, but these guys seem to lose their ability to think critically, analytically, and logically. It's all dedicated towards memorization and regurgitation, and the rest of their brains is
stature. They don't want to lose those little letters next to their capitalized name.
I'd add specialization to your list of it.
Yeah, exactly. Specialization.
Most fundamentally, it's the myopic view that specialization creates. So, yes, you may be an expert in a particular topic to such an extent that the finer details, but if you started down a path with a certain worldview, That's often the thing that I think impedes research, realistically. But fundamentally, that that's the biggest problem, that these people sit with a posthumous accreditation from institutes as if it means they see the big picture. The reality of the qualification is they understand the minutiae of a very, very minute subject.
Yeah.
I was going to just say and age myself again that maybe it was Kelly Bundy syndrome, that maybe they've memorized so many facts they worry that if they actually use their brain thinking, some of the little facts will fall out. But I think your way was much more eloquent.
Yeah.
That
I
is
agree, Adam.
that is getting trapped on the horns of an enema.
All right, who's laughing?
That was my favorite Kelly Bundy quote.
Everybody remembers the Bundy bounce.
I remember the giant storm coming to the Chicago area. That was Kelly Bundy, Weather Bunny.
Oh, that show.
That's hilarious.
Been a while.
All right, on that note, we're talking married with children right now. At this point, I think I'm going to hang up and pay attention to my family. But thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Friday afternoon. Dismally still snowing in Denver, but you guys have really brightened my realm, and thank you.
Thank you, Cammie, and thank you, Bob, so much for hanging out with us this evening.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to do it. And we will definitely do another show. And if you guys, think that there is a way to present my way of thinking or my thoughts on this subject, then maybe I will at some point. I know a lot of people have asked me about it, and I don't have any problem talking about it privately, but the one thing I do want to say is I deeply respect people's beliefs and their religions and their Christianity and stuff like that, and I in no way want to offend anybody. I respect those beliefs. I do not necessarily always share them, but I absolutely respect them, and I find a lot of validity in them as well. However, I'm on a different path. I'm on my own path, and I would expect that people respect that as well. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I hesitate to come out with this line of thinking. Is I honestly don't want to offend anybody, and it would never be even presented in that way. But you know how people get so easily offended. But when you say something that they might not necessarily agree with. And, flat earthers are kind of fanatical when it comes to that. So that's all I'll say about that. But besides that, guys, it's been great hanging out with you. As
Thanks so
always.
much, Bob. Thank you.
Bob,
Yes,
were you surreptitiously telling me you're a Muslim?
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily any faith, but I do believe
mate.
I do believe in a creator. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, so I will go that far. Let's put it that way.
Stick with Junicorn.
There you go. I'll stick with the Junicorn.
Not for me,
guys.
okay?
Thank y'all so much.
All right. Love you guys.
Love y'all.
We'll talk to you next time.
All right, thanks,
Yes,
Bob.
indeed.
All right. Bye-bye.
Y'all have a good night.
Okay.
I think I'm about to bow out here myself. I used to try to stick out to the end, but I had spent a sleepless couple days with the landlord and crew traipsing around doing repairs. So,
Come say goodbye, Savage.
I'm surprised he hasn't already.
Didn't fall asleep in the bus. Yes, he's
on the
right
mic,
now.
sleeping on the keyboard.
Getting rained on.
Rain drips on his forehead. Right.
I can hear him, for fuck's sake.
we were talking there. Bob was talking there a little bit about degrees, PhDs, if they mean anything, degrees, if they mean. And a little bit of advice. If any jumped up little arsehole ever says to you, can you differentiate y equals x squared? Say dy by dx equals 2x. And watch the absolute buffoon disappear.
Can we play it?
I was a little bit tipsy. I was a bit shouty.
You were, yeah. It was good though.
It was really good.
Just shut him right up.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe he does know something about it.
Go on. What it did for me was the level of the question. Yeah. I was going to go and set a challenge for someone. I wouldn't pick the primary example from day one of A-level maths. The way the actual describer of integrate of differentiation, the way you do it. So, like I said, I very rare I stand up, but we also asked Rumpus on that show what his dissertation was in, and he stuttered and sputtered. And I say a lot of people stand behind some formal status as if it means anything. I just wonder whether this man really does have a formal status.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
This week.
A lot of people can say they have these things, and there's a lot of people that actually do have these things that are blundering idiots. I mean, they memorized it, they got a C minus or a D or whatever just above passing. Didn't actually absorb any knowledge or information. But they have those little letters by their name now. It's I don't know.
So including that the degree level, it's skills of repetition.
Yeah.
So even the degrees, in my opinion, is no demonstration of critical thinking ability.
It's all regurgitation.
Part of the frustration of taking new pharmacists on and having them with these degrees, which are accredited over 4 years now as a master's, as opposed to mine over, which was just a BSc, and you pick them up and you. The biggest thing over the past 10, 15 years was looking at them and going, my God, you can't do long division on paper. And that became such a problem that the establishment decided that it would be reasonable to allow these highly educated people calculators instead of demonstrating that they can do long division when they're dealing with your health. Just so you can check in your head. Never mind trust the calculator. So you can check these numbers. Worrying thing, which is a big indictment for me of the critical thinking. You can't even do the maths in your head. Are you fit to do it on a calculator down the line? Do you know what I mean? And a qualification degree isn't can you do it quickly with the calculator? It's are you fit to do the job? And there's been a severe degeneration of this stuff. And so when your job as a tutor gets harder and harder, there's critical thinking skills. And when you're dealing with analysing medication, patient record, and people's health, critical thinking's a key part.
Yeah.
All the knowledge in the world is useless to you if you can't apply it.
Scary, isn't it? I wonder how they talk about the resets and things like that. I wonder how many times they've obviously had technologies that we haven't gotten to yet or are not allowed to use yet, from pyramids and whatnot and all these different things that we can't do today. So at one point humans had technology that was beyond different than what we have right now. So how many times has this happened? Do they dumb us down on purpose right before a reset, so it's harder to try to rebuild on our own? Get us so.
I think the opposite. Debate. I think the logical set is what's happening, as you can see, is to build a civilization so far up into technological status so that any collapse within that elicits a fundamental collapse of all the structures of society. Now, if you've got a agricultural society, you can't collapse that. Yeah? But if you've got even the place where you get your food is a canning factory controlled by computers, then actually you can cut the food supply there, can't you? Which is the collapse of society, really, when you kill the food.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They get us so dependent upon these machines that when we don't have them anymore, we can't function as a society. We don't know how to do it.
Function of cities.
The moon of what was that? Or was
I
that?
said it's the function of cities. If you look at the old tech, there were fantastic centralized monumental structures, but habitation wasn't structured in such a way, from what you can tell. You look at the scars on the North American continent, the habitation was widespread, and you would hope and assume in harmony with nature, wouldn't you? In the past, if we using etheric fields for energy and that, as it suggested, then you would hope that any habitation would be in synergy with the environment. But if you look at the city plans, the only ways you start to see massive tenements and the like is later on. All of the real grandiose structures aren't related to dense habitation. The real.
No, I'm just
real
saying that
natures.
they had the abilities to build them at one time. I don't know what purpose they served, but they just had the ability, the technology, whatever it was. I think it was sound resonance.
No, sorry, that's what I'm meaning. If you think about the old structures, everything was in harmony. That's the purpose of it. It's if you think about the functions of cities now, very, very different. They're not that they require already the robotization, mass production of huge swathes of land where nobody lives to support them. They're not habitable places. They're not self-sustaining in themselves, are they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the American Indians had it right. Some of the tribes, they would just travel with the food wherever it was spring. Go down south for the winter as far as you can get. Starts warming up, start heading back up north. Starts getting cold, start heading back south. And the food, as long as you follow the path the right way, you'll hit spring and then you'll hit falls. And on your way back down, you'll catch a bunch of them.
So if you're going to do a reset, the cities are what you wipe out. And then the rest is what you have to clean up afterwards. Yeah? And then the stories that they tell, then the people that you stick in the lunatic asylum, those that don't fit in with modern society. I wonder why the mental asylums were enormous shortly after the reset. After the reset, a lot of them were used as their because for some reason shortly after the reset, but before everybody went mental, there was mass immorality and all these women were having illegitimate children that nobody could deal with, so they just kept giving them to orphanages. So, or
what if it all has to do with magnetics?
Ladies.
The magnetic flux. Because I believe the phenomena that's the reset, it's electrical in some way. I believe that it's going to be, it has to do with electricity and magnetism, and all kinds of things are going to change because of these things fluxing. They're going to
You
like
gotta just
hiccup almost.
capture that flux and store it. And then once you get up to 88 miles an hour, you can release that
Yeah.
flux all at once, and it'll propel you forward or backward into time. A
Oh my God,
capacitor of sorts, of a flux
just-
capacitor.
I just watched Back to the Future 3, and I was sitting there thinking, because I've been watching all the Walter Lewin stuff, and I'm doing the one right now on electric flux. And I was like, okay, so the flux capacitor, could it be, you're taking the positive here and a positive here and creating that negative, that other counter space by using these two poles of a magnetic field, and then sucking the energy out of that, or taking two negatives and creating a positive and harnessing that energy. Could you do that? Because you're creating a pole, an extra pole, an extra counter space. So there has to be, I don't know, can you trap that? Can you harness that energy right there and put it into a capacitor?
Or did they have, could it have been 3?
Yeah, it had 3. That's what I'm saying. You have a negative and a negative coming in and pointing
And then
towards each other and creating
fourth,
that.
with a fourth in the middle. Wasn't it a Y shaped where they intersected?
Yeah. So you'd have 2 poles. They don't have to be coming in directly straight. You just have 2 poles coming that are the same polarity.
Gotcha.
And then it'll create that third pole right there by itself. So can you harness the energy that's going on in there, in that pole you created, without, running electricity through something and making it coherent and storing the energy in there? Now you have a new pole all by itself without all that stuff involved.
Right.
So can you harness that?
Zach's gone all Doc Brown on us.
I would just say that sounds a bit like a TARDIS to me.
They don't like that word these days. They prefer mentally challenged.
I think that now. How could a Time Lord be a woman when there's clearly Time Ladies? Nonsense. You've got to be mentally challenged. Nonsense. Anyway, I used to love Doctor Who. Bastards ruined it. I've not watched one.
None of the Back to the Futures?
No, I watched Back to the Doctor Who's where it's a female doctor. I'm not having it. Not having it, mate. Just not having it. Nothing wrong with Nurse Who, was there? Doing fine.
Hello, nurse.
In the Rick and Morty, I think it's episode 3, the last one, he's in the White House because he thinks Morty deserves a selfie for all the times they've saved the planet. And it's a black president. They never say his name, but they rip on him bad. And the one guy, he's like, does anybody have a shot? And Rick's like, yeah, 9 people do. Look, boop, and hit the button, and all these people's bullets are pointing straight at his head. And he's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. He's like, fire, and all of them ricochet and kill another person. He's like, just kill him already. He's not a god. He's like, you don't know what I am. I could be Doctor Who up in this motherfucker. Oh, that's good. Yeah, just those little things that he says right there is what makes the show. I mean, it's stupid. It's about, going off into space, into different galaxies and blah, blah, blah. But just the little stuff like that, it's hilarious.
Are we doing one?
Yeah, I think so.
Can I end it on a downer?
If you want, if you,
it's not a downer.
I was going to do a couple readings here that I had and just a little bit of audio. If you want me to get that out of the way, if you insist on ending it with a downer, or you can do yours first and I'll do mine at the end. It doesn't matter.
It's a downer for me. It's a downer for me. You know. issue with my dad, and we treated him with Simpson oil and the likes. And at one point in life, one of my real close friends, his wife was diagnosed with a very strange form of cancer called brachial cancer. And today's the anniversary of her death. I don't want to talk about treatments or anything. I just want to say, Kira, I love you, girl. I miss you. We all miss you. And we're still there for the boys. It's not a down at all, mate. It's a real positive thing, and a lovely lady. And I just wanted to just take a minute. I know nobody ever listens to this, but it means a lot to me to just remember her tonight. As a lot of people across the plane have. She was a special lady. So, love you, Kara. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, beautiful, Adam.
And I was just looking here. There's an author named Morris L. West, and he wrote The Shoes of the Fisherman. And there's a little excerpt that I thought was pretty appropriate. Not even appropriate. I don't know. There's these two stuck out at me tonight for whatever reason. I felt compelled to read them, so I will. It costs so much to be a full human being that few have the enlightenment or the courage to pay the price. One has to abandon altogether the search for security and reach out to the risk of living with both arms. One has to embrace the world like a lover. One has to accept pain as a condition of existence. One has to court doubt and darkness as the cost of knowing. One needs a will stubborn in conflict, but apt always in total acceptance of every consequence of living and dying. And that was Morris L. West. And then just as a follow-up was poet James Kavanaugh. And this one I've always liked. It was really spoke to me for a long time. It says, "We are not unhappy, but neither are we content. We continue to explore life, hoping to uncover its ultimate secret. We walk along the beach. We are drawn by the ocean, taken by its power, its increasing motion, its mystery, and its unspeakable beauty. We are like forests and mountains, deserts and hidden rivers, and the lonely cities as well. Our sadness is as much a part of our lives as our laughter. Some people do not have to search. They find their niches early in life and rest there, seemingly content and resigned. They do not seem to ask much of life. Sometimes they do not seem to take it seriously. At times, I envy them, but usually I do not understand them. Seldom do they understand me." And that's poet James Kavanaugh. So that was this week's reading here on Have No Sphere.
Enjoyed that, mate.
Yeah, beautiful.
Did we get a tune tonight then to go home on? Did we record anything? Probably the night. That would have been funny.
No, we'll just keep it simple. Keep it quick.
I like it.
Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in and sticking with us. We've made it just about 3 hours on the money, 3 hours and a minute. So we shall call it a night, and we will see you right back here next week for another episode of Have No Sphere on the Iron Realm Media YouTube channel. Be sure to check out the Ironworx on Truth Frequency Radio, TFRlive.com, every Tuesday and Friday morning at 4 a.m. Central Time. That's 10 a.m. till noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Walt, Zach, and I hanging out there. Cammie has been joining us recently. It's always a good time. You never know what the hell's going to be talked about. Who the hell might just pop in. So join us over there.
Fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Otherwise, be good, and we'll see you all next week. Toodles.
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force.
God damn it, it's you.
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force.
Eat a dick, gravity.